Live betting reaction to all of the night's action. You're tuned in to VSiN Live on Mad Dog Sports Radio. Patrick Meagher, Dustin Swedelson, VSiN Live.
Okay, it's VSiN Live, Mad Dog Sports Radio, June 2, 2025. We say hi. I'm Patrick Meagher, live from Los Angeles. It looks like the big guy's still in Los Angeles. I half looked up and expected you to be at the Wynn in Las Vegas. You never know. Where in the world is Dustin Swedelson? But I'll tell you where he's at today. He's here for 3 hours. Let's see if he can get a strong start. Nia Hardman back in New York City. Ryan Smith, Las Vegas. You can find Ryan running our YouTube, youtube.com/VSiN Live. So a lot to do. Just quickly here, get a little bit of a respite. The Stanley Cup Final, that starts on Wednesday. The pricing on that, the Oilers are going to be slight favorites at minus $1.20. And, again, it's a great series. We saw the series last year with the Panthers hoisting Lord Stanley's Cup, but it's a better Edmonton team this year. It got me thinking because I've been obsessed with this small market conversation, which I'll frame a little bit better here in a second, but just the Edmonton factor. We had a caller on Friday call in from Canada and essentially said, look, dummies, this has nothing to do with the Oilers. This has everything to do with McJesus and Connor McDavid. It's his cup to win. So that got me thinking. That's kind of fascinating. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to frame this today. What does this mean to Edmonton? Because Edmonton certainly across the four majors is a smaller market. And what would another Stanley Cup mean? So we'll talk to, what's his name? Reed Wilkins, who hosts Sports Talk at Edmonton. What do they talk about when they're not talking about hockey on Sports Talk at Edmonton? Do they talk about like pickleball? NBA Finals start on Thursday. We'll give you some historical context on the pricing coming up in just a bit. You're looking north of $7 to win $1 on the Thunder, of course, taking on the Pacers as they closed out the Knicks, which we can discuss on Saturday. So just when thinking about the Stanley Cup Final and the NBA Final, that got us having a discussion today. And you've got one of the smaller markets, Oklahoma City, one of the smaller markets in Indiana taking on one another, which will be an overriding theme as far as the ratings are concerned and the national interest. And then you've got Florida, who is Sunrise, Florida. That's down in Miami, which is a huge market, but just such little fanfare because it's a part of the country, obviously, that isn't obsessed with hockey. And then you've got Edmonton way up in Canada, a smaller market as well. So I asked Dustin this question earlier, and I'll ask you now. 888-MAD-DOG-6, 888-623-3646. Is Edmonton, is that the most storied small town or small franchise? And when you know what I'm saying by that, the smallest market size. Is the Edmonton Oilers, with all they've accomplished, is that the most storied franchise? Can you think of a bigger one? Can you think of a smaller town, smaller market that has a more storied history and present than the Edmonton Oilers? 888-623-3646. We'll get into that. As we start the program today, though, Dustin Swedelson, of course, Frank Ragnow. This is not a good story. This is great. This is terrible. Frank Ragnow, who is the best center in football, I should say was the best center in football, has retired from the Detroit Lions at the age of 29. Injuries, he said that he's got to take care of himself and he's got to take care of his family. The Lions this offseason have lost the best center in football, the best offensive coordinator in football, and one of the best defensive coordinators in football. They've got a brutal schedule. They're in maybe the toughest division in all of football. I think this could end up being a disaster as far as Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions this year. I hope I'm proven wrong. But Frank Ragnow has called it a career. That was kind of a shocker today.
Yeah, it came out of nowhere, and the hits just keep coming for the Lions. The hits keep coming for Dan Campbell. And I'm not saying Frank Ragnow was the beginning of the change for your Lions, because we all know it's when Campbell was hired and he started biting off people's kneecaps. But it does feel like winning in the trenches was the way that this organization did shift things. So losing a guy like Frank Ragnow, who'd become the best center in football, who was physical, who helped them become not just a good running team, but also a good passing team over the course of the last few years, the hits just keep coming for the Lions. I feel bad for them. And we joked about it as Ben Johnson was lost to the Bears. But that window's getting smaller.
Oh, no.
just
Last
peeking
year was
through.
no. Let me be very clear. The loss to Washington at Ford Field was catastrophic. And I said it at the time. That was last year. Everything came up perfectly for the Detroit Lions. The division has only gotten better. Ragnow has retired. Now, Ragnow has a bit of a history on this program because we used to love doing, this program's VSiN Live for at least 20 more shows. And we used to like doing the draft when we hosted the Wrap, broadcasters. And so while we'd be on the air, we like to talk about the draft. That was always a thing. And I was waiting towards the end of the first round back in 2019 for the Detroit Lions to make their pick, and they picked the center. And I was not happy about it because I'm an idiot. And I hadn't heard of Frank Ragnow, or maybe I had read about him in that, hey, third round, maybe we should grab a center type vibe. But they drafted a center in the first round, which is something you don't often see. Now, he went on to become an all-pro. He went on to become the best center in football. But at the time, I was pissed. I wanted a wide receiver. I wanted a running back. I wanted something flashy, a defensive end. I wanted something, so I was bitter.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're drafting in a spot in 2018, 20th overall. And the names that went towards the top of that board, let me remind you, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold,
I was going to run it
Allen.
back. We're going to run it back. We'll run the draft back. But go ahead.
But my point was, I remember in the moment you looked at me and you said, your team, I hate the pick. They took a running back in the top 5, but at least you can get excited about an offensive skill guy in the first round. My team, light years away from winning, just took a center.
Yeah, and maybe I was completely wrong. And Saquon, obviously. We are going to run that draft back. I literally was like, worst pick ever. Was it the best pick of the draft?
It might be top 5.
Based on where he was picked and based on productivity,
value.
Was it the way? Now, that was 2019. I was lucky enough to see a new year. I was lucky enough to go around the planet or go around the Earth or go around the moon or whatever, the sun. Yeah. So I was lucky enough to have another birthday. And the big guy, now get this ready. The big guy thought he'd play a little trick on me. Now, this is before we knew Frank Ragnow was going to be Frank Ragnow. But because I went so ballistic when Ragnow was drafted in 2020, when I turned, I don't know, however the hell old I was then, this is what I received from the big guy.
Hey, Patrick, this is Frank Ragnow from the Detroit Lions. Heard it was your birthday, so I wanted to wish you, one of my biggest fans, a happy birthday, man. Go Lions and happy birthday, Patrick.
Thank you, Frank. He put everything into it. And he put everything into his career. And he retired at 29. But that cameo will live on. Did he win a championship? No. Did he even get to a Super Bowl? No. But he did present me with that. Dustin presented me with a Frank Ragnow cameo. And my man was dialed in. He was way into it. You could tell.
Oh, he put everything into it except for a T-shirt. He was shirtless for the cameo video. This was also very.
Yeah, that's right.
It was very early in the days of Cameo, where it was a new concept. It was pre-pandemic, where not everyone was like Babchick's on Cameo right now, and I think he pays you to make one for you. Like he'll pay you $20 to send you one for your kid's birthday. But Ragnow's a man. That's what he is. He had a torn pec last year and missed one game. Played through a torn pec into the playoffs. While most people, that's a season ender. He had a tough career. He was physical. You noticed him helping improve your offensive line, because I know everyone knows Patrick watches offensive line play more than anyone. So Ragnow obviously stood out to you. It's a sad day. Sad day for the show. Sad day for a friend. Frank Ragnow says goodbye.
Yeah, specifically when I'm watching O-line play, I focus on the center. So, and I think most of you that can hear my voice do the exact same thing. So, yeah, all kidding aside, he ended up being just a tremendous football player, from what I'm told. And also, he must have been killing it with Cameo early in his career because he made enough money to retire at the age of 29. That's what it comes down to. So, with that Lions conversation and Ragnow retiring and how much upheaval offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, we started thinking, is the North the toughest division in football? So we're going to have some NFL conversation later in the program. The Falcons have news with Pitts. Diggs continues. Who's going to start at quarterback for the Browns? So there's a lot to do there. Giannis is in the news as Giannis Antetokounmpo. Woo. You know what? And it makes a ton of sense. The market is really slimming down for him potentially to end up with the Toronto Raptors. That is a huge city, 6 million plus people, a global city, international city. Obviously, he's from Greece. That would make a ton of sense. Do they have the dominoes to actually make a move for Giannis? We shall see, but that number has shortened up as far as basketball and Giannis is concerned.
Yeah, look, we were looking at about 40-1 on Giannis and where he would play next season, where Milwaukee's been the favorite at a bunch of different shops, depending on where you look, if they're listed. Most places have it listed as outside of Milwaukee where he will play next year. It was 40-1. It's down to 22-1 at some spots, and I'm seeing FanDuel down to 11-1, meaning Toronto and Giannis's people, they have some mutual interest. And he originally said that he may want to go to a big market. New York was listed, LA was listed, Miami was listed. And I think as this show props up Canada for America, just to let everyone know what they're about, I think we all underestimate as Americans how big Toronto is. Toronto is a massive city. If Giannis goes to Toronto, his star only grows. But I think when you look at the options right now, I'm looking at FanDuel. This was posted a little bit ago. Bucks are the favorite, plus 105. Spurs, plus 470. Rockets, 8-1. Nets, 18-1. Knicks, 24-1. And the Raptors, 11-1. Don't know why they're out of order there, but that's how they're listed. The reality is, the San Antonio Spurs and the Houston Rockets, if Giannis cares about winning championships, should not be on the list. He needs to stay in the Eastern Conference.
There it is. So NBA, a little NFL. We've got guests to get to. But I wanted to start with, we have, like I said, there's a bit of a window until you get to the NHL on Wednesday and the NBA on Thursday. I think it's fascinating. I think the series are two great series. I think the Panthers-Oilers competitive, from a competitive perspective, it doesn't get better, but it's not like we're talking about the Red Wings and we're talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs. Obviously, these are two markets that don't necessarily register in the public consciousness nationally. And then you have Oklahoma City, which is the second smallest or the third smallest market in all of the NBA, and Indiana, which is a lot smaller than you think in the NBA Finals. So we're going to start here. Most storied small market team in all of sports, the Edmonton Oilers. If you think about it, they came into the league, 79? They were a dynasty anywhere between 83 and 90. They had far and away the greatest player the sport has ever seen in Wayne Gretzky during their dynastic run. They've got 5 Stanley Cups for a small market. There's just a lot to love about that history. Then they end up with the modern-day Gretzky and Connor McDavid. Draisaitl's a Hall of Famer. He's in his prime. I mean, if you're thinking about just a small market, the Oilers, I can't really – you might be able to come up with one or two across the 4 majors, but can you come up with a more storied small market franchise? 888-623-3646. We'll talk about the series in the NBA and on the ice in the NHL and answer that question. We'll take an early break here, VSiN Live, Mad Dog Sports Radio, and come back with your calls on a Monday. It's VSiN Live, Mad Dog Sports Radio.
This is VSiN Live on Mad Dog Sports Radio with Patrick Meagher and Dustin Swedelson. This is VSiN Live on Mad Dog Sports Radio with Patrick Meagher and Dustin Swedelson.
Okay, get 24/7 sports betting coverage with VSiN on SiriusXM 158 and the SiriusXM app. Must listen to channel. And as an exclusive offer for SiriusXM listeners, you can get full VSiN Pro access through August 1st for just $9. So they dropped it $10, trying to get some cash over there. A daily email you get with best bets from the hosts and guests. You get exclusive betting splits from DraftKings and Circa Sportsbook, plus the NFL betting guide when it drops. Go to vsin.com/subscribe. Use the promo code SIRIUS to get the summer special for $50 off. VSiN, the sports betting network, as we welcome you back. VSiN Live, Mad Dog Sports Radio. Dustin Swedelson, I'm Patrick Meagher. So we're talking Edmonton to start here. Edmonton, of course, going to have home ice. Yeah, I got that correct. Home ice, yeah, $1.20 favorite against the Florida Panthers. Maybe you can pull up the line one game coming up on Wednesday. I am curious what they set the total at, Dustin, because these are two teams that can score it. However, Edmonton showed their defensive prowess against Dallas, and Florida, when they need to, can clamp down. Obviously, Bobrovsky and net. Did they set it 6?
We're at 6.5, and it's actually juiced to the under 6.5, minus 125, plus 105 on the over. And you've got Edmonton a minus $1.30 favorite for game one. And if I remember correctly, it was midway through that Vegas series after they stumbled, lost game 3. It seemed like Edmonton figured something out defensively, figured something out in net, and became a lot better on that end of things.
Yeah, what's the price on the game?
Minus 130 with the Oilers, plus 110 the other way with Florida.
Ooh, we might be looking at the Panthers at a little plus price there to get the series started. But Edmonton certainly is a fascinating story because even if you look at Canada, Toronto's bigger, Ottawa's bigger, Montreal is bigger, Vancouver is bigger. I think you're really only looking at maybe Calgary and Winnipeg as a smaller market. So,
and Winnipeg's tiny, right? Winnipeg's really tiny.
But when you're talking about storied franchises in the NHL, obviously Montreal is in the mix. You have Edmonton in the mix. But as far as the four majors, you'd be hard-pressed to find a more storied small market team than what Edmonton has become. If Edmonton were to win another cup, that'd be 6 since 79. That would be miraculously impressive. And really, it's just the conversation surrounding the four teams. The Florida Panthers, not in a hotbed down in Florida, obviously Sunrise, that's well north of Miami. And then you got two small market teams with Oklahoma City and Indiana. Edmonton, the most storied? That was the question we asked today. I'm going to get to these calls, big guy, but what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a fair question when you factor in how small it is, one, but they have a dynasty. And I know we're going to prop up Montreal and the Canadiens and their history and what they mean, but Maurice the Rocket Richard ain't walking through that door. You're going to have to dig 6 feet down to find his body. It's been a minute since the Canadiens were running the NHL, and since then, the Oilers have won more rings over the course of, 35, 40 years than the Canadiens did. So if we're going to choose a team from Canada, it's going to be Edmonton because they've won more in modern times. As far as small markets go, I had 3 or 4 that jump out to me, and I think I have the answer, and it's in America, and it's not in hockey.
Yeah, we're going NBA, we're going NHL, we're going MLB, and obviously we're going NFL to find a more storied small market than Edmonton. Let's get to your calls. 888-623-3646, and we'll start in Canada. First call of the week here on VSiN Live, and say hi to Ray. Hi, Ray.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Good, Ray. What's up?
So I totally agree with your case for the Edmonton Oilers in the NHL. But if we're talking all of sports, we got to go Titletown, USA, Green Bay Packers, greatest small market team in the history of sports, without a doubt. Lambeau Field, Brett Favre, even the title Aaron Rodgers got, it's got to be Green Bay.
What before I say goodbye to you, Ray, what does Edmonton mean to you being from Toronto?
A bit of a rival, a little bit of jealousy being from Toronto that they've got McJesus and we're still looking to get out of the second round. but cheering on the Canadian team nonetheless. Hate to see the Cup go further south than, say, even Pittsburgh. I think that's sacrilege to hockey.
So, but it is true. You put the rivalry aside for the nationalistic pride. You want Canada to win this.
We haven't seen a Cup here since the Canadians in '93. I think we're due.
Ray, you know what's odd? I'm pulling for you too. No tariff. I'm pulling for you. Like I just sometimes in life you got to put the borders aside, people. No politics, and understand what it means to a country. Nothing could mean more to a country than a Stanley Cup. Let's just and Florida won it last year. Let's spread it out a little bit, America.
I need to hear from someone who's Canadian who roots for another team and why you wouldn't be pulling for Edmonton. I think that's my biggest thing. Why wouldn't you want this team to win? Why wouldn't you want them to bring the Cup back? It reminds me of in the SEC. In the SEC, for whatever reason, it's a weird thing that happens. It feels very incestual, which kind of ties right in with that part of the country. But the SEC roots for each other when their team's knocked out of the playoffs and someone else is alive, and they would just rather the SEC win the national championship. But I'm curious why anyone in Canada who doesn't root for the Oilers wouldn't be rooting for them now.
He said he's in Canada, and he said the obvious one, right? And that's the Green Bay Packers. It's Green Bay in particular for the most storied small town. I mean, if you're talking Edmonton, they've got, 1 million people. I believe Green Bay has literally 100,000 people. I always compare Green Bay to an English soccer club town. Like when you go to England and you outside of London and you hit some of the smaller port towns and they happen to have a team that's either in the Premier League or in one of the second or third divisions in professional football, a.k.a. soccer in England, you're fascinated by the fact that you're running into a town that has a few thousand people. It's so cool. And that's the Green Bay vibe in America.
I tried to okie doke you on this. I did try to find a soccer team in Europe that was from a small town that won multiple titles, and I couldn't find one that made sense. Or at least I didn't understand what I was looking at. They started suggesting La Liga teams, and I was getting in the weeds of translation, like Google Translate, copying and pasting. So I couldn't find an option there, but I wanted to find a soccer team that would fit. Does anyone jump out to you where you're like, that's a small market and they're better than they should be? Or are the resources so crazy in European soccer that that's just not possible?
Yeah, it's such a unique, globally, the soccer experience and how because it's so old.
Yeah.
So it goes hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years back with some of the heritage for the clubs, and that's not just, as you mentioned, Spain and Germany and all over in Europe. But when we're talking our four majors, I do think it's fascinating. What was surprising to me, Indiana, much smaller than you think. I just assumed Indianapolis, bigger city as far as population than you would expect, but it's in that bottom third as far as market size in the NBA.
Are you ready for the most random fact about Indianapolis that I found today?
Sure.
Indianapolis. Well, if you said no, I was going to be really bitter because I was waiting to use this.
Yeah, no, I'm
Indianapolis is the largest major U.S. city not situated on a crossable river.
Indianapolis is the largest major U.S. city not situated on a river?
On a river. Everyone else is on the body of water.
Getting your Huckleberry Finn on there, big guy?
Yeah, we're running through the woods.
Who knew I was hosting with Mark Twain today? Hanging out there
Yikes.
on the creek. Too soon? Too soon.
Yikes.
More storied. Green Bay's a great answer. And if you're on hold and you have Green Bay, you don't need to go anywhere. You can flex a little bit because I think that would. I'm having a hard time after Green Bay coming up with a more storied small market town and team than Edmonton. And by the way, we're just talking about one team.
I have one. I'm not going to give it yet. I have one. It's not as small as Green Bay, but I do believe it is constituted as a small market.
Let's go to Vancouver. Very bougie up that part of the country in Canada. And say hi to Ryan. Hi, Ryan.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, Ryan. What's up?
Thanks for taking my call so quickly. Yeah, I'm a dual citizen. So, I got both passports up here in Vancouver, so I got a pretty good opinion of both sides, or at least I got my own opinion. And I'd rather the U.S. team win because I don't think Canada deserves it. Like, just kind of, yeah. I think the way that we're treated up here in Canada is, it's not really that fair. So
you're saying as a dual citizen, you don't feel as though you're fairly treated in Canada?
That's true.
Oh, interesting. So you got a little anti-Canada bias going there, Ray?
Yeah,
Ryan?
that's what it is. That's all it is. It's just an anti-Canada bias.
I thought the people are nice. They're not nice to you.
Yeah.
Why are they not nice to you?
Oh, no. Canadians are nice, but what's going on up here in Canada isn't so great. I know America doesn't really get to see it.
No, I hear you, brother. Listen. There's a rumor floating around. If you wanted to have tonight, pull out the rocks glass, pour some old Kentucky bourbon in it. If you were saying, I don't know, in Windsor, you can't find any on the shelves. You know why? We refuse to ship it to them.
Yeah, that sounds like a man who might be getting double tariffed. He might be paying tariffs on both sides of the border. And by the way, I still don't know how tariffs work, but I'm pretty sure that guy's getting the worst end of it.
I hear you, brother. I hear you, big guy. Let's see. Russell in Toronto. Russell, hi.
Hey, are you guys counting Foxborough as a small town? Because the Patriots are
that's new. That's New England. Let's
Boston.
Boston.
And what you guys should be looking for are Calgary Flames fans. That's the same province. Those two are pretty heated. So I'd be interested if a Calgary Flames fan is cheering for Edmonton.
Well, but what about from Toronto, where, like, by far and away the biggest city in Canada? Are you pulling for the Oilers?
I think at this point you have to. You got to just throw on your Team Canada. But I always, like with hockey, since Montreal won in '93, Ottawa, I believe, has lost a cup finals. I think Edmonton's lost a cup finals. I think Calgary's lost a cup finals. And Vancouver's lost a cup finals. Like, we've went to the dance. We're just not pulling it through as a Canadian when it comes to that.
This could be the year. Russell, thank you. What always fascinated me about – I had this kid in Michigan. He was a Canadiens fan. Did you notice, like, we say it, like, with an A. Montreal. They say Montreal.
Oh, I thought you were going to go Canadians on me. Okay.
Montreal.
So they do the obnoxious French thing.
I'm pretty sure prostitution's legal in Montreal.
I wouldn't know, in case my girlfriend's listening, even though I've been there twice.
I'm not saying that prostitution's my thing. I'm probably the only single male that went to where did I go? The red light district?
Oh, Amsterdam.
I went to Amsterdam, and didn't even go down the red light district. It's a little bit of a flex.
You just went for the brownies. You're the person who went there for the cuisine.
I don't even think I got high. No. I went to Amsterdam, didn't do the 2 H's.
What? I think you heard their tourism. That is their whole tourism.
Now, I don't know if it was the red light district, but I do remember I was walking around. I just had a beer, and I love traveling in walking cities. And I was walking. I must have taken a wrong turn, big guy.
Oh, yeah.
Because, let's put it this way. You can get anything you want in Amsterdam because there was a young lady, young, probably in her 80s, missing a limb.
Hey, if that's your thing, I don't judge. They just ironically, they have her out there looking like you're walking outside of a Foot Locker, and you can just choose this one for the night. But in case I decide in the future, do you remember what streets that was on?
It just was
cross-section.
I was like, listen, I understand humans are complex, and everybody has their own proclivity. But if you're aiming for old, less limbs, that's therapy.
That's quite a search on the old hub.
If you search that on the hub, even the hub would say, "You good?"
Yeah. Let's rethink things. Here's a 1-800 number.
You just got better help. Speaking of therapy, here's our buddy Forrest in Palm Springs, beautiful part of California.
Run.
Hi, Forrest.
Oh, geez, here we go with the jokes.
Well, it's such a bad joke, too. I mean, honestly, big guy, keep it to yourself. Forrest, what's up?
I was just going to tell you, I've been a disc jockey. I've worked in radio my whole life. I started in high school full-time, and I've worked at Corn Dog, Iowa, at every mom-and-pop radio station. And, I've worked in Seattle and San Francisco and L.A., too. So when I've been called into the PD's office so many times I can't remember, don't make fun of the listeners. I just wanted to tell you that I haven't had a chance to call since you've been back. But every time that you bring Mike from the OC to the altar, I just listen and absorb it all, and you say everything that I've always wanted to say on the air, and it just feels so good.
Are you still in broadcast, Forrest?
Yes.
In Palm Springs area?
No. I actually work in the Inland Empire in Redlands area at a radio station at a Classic Hits.
Yeah, you got a good voice, man. See, you were blessed with something that I never was blessed with. I never had a good voice. That's why I just went into dumb talking. But you've got pipes on you, brother.
Well, thank you. And you were blessed with something I never had, a cerebral brain who could string 3 sentences together that were coherent.
Well, no, I thank you for it. Appreciate you. Hey, maybe let my bosses know at VSiN.
I'm jealous of both of you because I have neither of those things.
And also, big guy. When you hear the name Forrest,
I know.
Please go under the assumption he's heard the joke you're about to say his whole entire life. It's not necessary. It's just
not really. Not his whole life, since like 96, right? That's when that movie probably came out.
True.
But more importantly, I've had a few stumbles on the show. I needed a layup. That was a layup right there.
You certainly have. You've taken layups and you've had some stumbles. Haven't we all? Haven't we all? What are we talking about? Small markets. You know what it is, people? It's an easy breezy Monday. These are the type of shows I like. There's no game tipping off 2 seconds from now, although we will get you some baseball bets here in just a bit. Talk about that Yankees-Dodgers series from over the weekend. Plenty of storylines there. But I like it when we can just kick back and have conversations. How about you, big guy? Run, Forrest, run. That was novel.
Well, that's a film, not a novel. But I like this because we can stretch out and just hang out and have a conversation. We're not forced to talk about a game. We'll have plenty of time to talk about games.
And speaking of Mike in the OC for us, he is on hold. And we will be getting the party recap. The Mad Dog Sports Radio meetup. Don't say anything, big guy. Don't. But here, Hermosa Beach. Did the big guy attend? Did I attend? How was the party? Was it a success? You will find out here in just a few minutes. But let's continue with the calls and go to Ontario and say hi to Mark. Mark, welcome.
Hey, got me?
Yeah, got you, Mark.
Nice. Well, with, with your other calls, well, you got to go to Montreal for sure. It's not the red district, but you got to go to Montreal. You're going to have a great time there.
It's basically like being in Europe, right?
Yeah, it is. Montreal is the best city. Great, the whole 9 yards. So, the other guy took my thunder. Besides Calgary, everybody's rooting for Edmonton for sure.
But you think Calgary, they have such a crazy rivalry with Edmonton that they're not pulling for Canada there?
No, well, they're not. They're cheering for Canada, but they're not cheering for Edmonton. Like that rivalry's like just crazy.
Do you believe that this is more of the McDavid Cup than the Oilers Cup, since the Oilers have had such success and it's all about like the coronation of Connor McDavid?
No, I think it's all Canada right now. It's all Canada right now. We need the cup back in Canada for sure. We want McDavid to get it because he's the best right now. But no, we want it in Canada for sure.
Yeah, I think you deserve it. Listen. It has Canada's been taking it on the chin lately. All right, go ahead. Tell your joke. All I said was take it on the chin. I know you're.
Well, I thought we were going back to Amsterdam with that one.
There we go. Everybody saw that coming.
That costs extra, by the way, people.
It must be like when things are said, do you battle with yourself to then go into normal conversation because you want to get the quick joke in? Is that what happens?
Yeah, no, there's a debate of like, you're 40, grow up, don't acknowledge that you can play off of this word, and just have a conversation with the human being on the other end. And then there's another part of me that says, I'm going to stay up all night thinking about the joke that I missed.
If you didn't do the joke. Yeah. Well, you did stay up all night one time talking to your girlfriend and telling her not to break up with you after you gave a crass joke. So maybe you should chill.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. But luckily that was just toilet humor, not of the sexual variety. So we're okay here.
We probably shouldn't drag that one back out.
No, let's wipe it clean.
All right. That wasn't horrific. Wasn't great.
Not good. I might get in trouble.
No, if she's listening, I swear, you could tell, Shorty, what I was trying to do. He's an idiot. Let's see. Ken is in Boston. Well, Ken, you answer that previous caller's question. Do you consider Foxborough small?
First of all, I just live in Boston, but I'm actually a Giants fan, and I hate the Patriots. Hate them. So I have to sit around here and listen to it, or at least had to for the last. They ruined my adult football life for the past 20 years, but we got 2 out of it. But no, Foxborough and Boston is not a small market team. They're obnoxious, and I don't like them. So
I concur. I concur with you.
Thank you. Really appreciate you. So thank you for taking my call. I'm fishing for compliments, too. So if you guys like my voice, please let me know.
Yeah, you sound great.
Pretty good.
You sound great.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So I'm actually a coach, right? I'm actually a former football coach and a basketball coach. My second favorite team, I just hopped in the car. I'm actually on my way to work. I work at a private boarding school, and I coach there. But the kid from the Pittsburgh Steelers, Pat Fryermuth, I used to coach him. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are a small market, storied franchise. I think it has to be, right? Pittsburgh's not a big city. It's but that's
let's look that up. I'm curious.
I'll tell you where they are.
You coach Fryermuth. Like, when you what's your coaching career? Can you run me through it?
My coaching career, so I coached high school football for about 10 years, and I coached Pat 3 out of those 10. Right now, I'm coaching boys basketball. This is my 19th season coaching boys basketball, my 3rd as a head coach, and I actually just won the New England Championship, my 4th during that tenure, but first as a head coach, and I was just named the Coach of the Year. So
that is Ken. That's first off, congratulations on your accomplishments, but also just the concept of dedicating 20 years of your life, because a lot of it's just not coaching at that age. You're so impressionable. I mean, mentoring young men, right?
Absolutely. Young men and women. So it's a co-ed boarding school, and I love it. They're great kids. They're better kids than they are athletes. And you know what? The funny thing is, like, it's a small school. It's only 350 kids, but you know, we've had kids that have gone on to do big things. And the league that we play in, actually, a bunch of kids go to play in the NBA. We don't have any. We have a couple that play overseas, but your Duncan Robinsons and your Andre Drummonds we played against. Tyler Kolek actually we played against. So we do those kind of things. So it's been absolutely rewarding. 20 years goes by just like that. But
it does.
This is what I've always wanted to do. And the crazy thing is, actually, if you really want to hear this, I'm actually the best black male girls JV lacrosse coach in the country. So if you can name another one, I'd take that up. But that is me right there. Jim, I have that moniker.
Jim Brown paved the way for you. Do you want to give your school that just won a championship a shout out or no?
Yeah, absolutely. It's Brooks School in North Andover, Massachusetts. We don't even have a mascot, so we are just Brooks School. So shout out to Brooks and everybody I work with and all the kids there.
Good job, Ken. Hey, thanks, man. Appreciate you. And you do have a nice voice. And I have just an unending level of support for, obviously, generally, there are teachers that end up coaching as well. So but that's a lot of time and a lot of effort. I'm not saying always he's at a level where maybe he doesn't have to do anything but coach, but that's just a lot of care for society to do what he does and grind away like that. I think it's incredible and good job.
Other people, now I feel bad about all the dick jokes I made, because if his school hears that, they're not going to like him associating with this show. So I'm a little bit concerned about that.
Yeah, I am too.
For everyone.
Not going to disagree. I'm
not going to stop, but I'm
because you know what
concerned about
happens? It's guilt by association.
Yeah,
So
well,
the perpetual childish jokes, people think, hey, that's that show Patrick does.
Yeah, and it's really me being me. But
Well, no, I've been known not to be Mr. Highbrow. But Ken, all kidding aside, Ken, congrats on the championship. He's coached basketball, football, and women's JV lacrosse. That is a man of many talents.
And probably a million more stories, not like Pat Fryermuth, where they don't go to the NFL, but it's just as rewarding doing his job, coaching them up.
There you go, big guy. A little wholesome content.
A little hallmark for you. Hallmark on a Monday.
888-623-3646. We'll keep this conversation going. If you're on hold, don't go anywhere. Edmonton. Now, again, Green Bay's in the chat, so that makes a ton of sense. But Edmonton, most storied small town or small market team in the four majors. Coming back with your calls. VSiN Live, Mad Dog Sports Radio.
This is VSiN Live on Mad Dog Sports Radio with Patrick Meagher and Dustin Swedelson.
Botkin to preview the NBA Finals coming up at the top of the hour. Every pitch, 2025 baseball season, SiriusXM, including home and away broadcast for every team on the SiriusXM app. Tonight, 9:45 Eastern, the Padres in San Francisco to face off NL West rival Giants. Hear the game in your car or on SiriusXM 106. Sirius 106 XM 178, your home for baseball talk all season long is MLB Network Radio, Sirius XM Channel 89, and the Sirius XM app. Let's say hi in Connecticut to Tony. Hi, Tony.
Hey, guys, great show as always. How you doing?
Thank you, Tony. Appreciate it.
Listen, I don't consider Edmonton a small market. They got over 1 million people. I mean, that's a pretty big city. When I was thinking about it, I was thinking about something like Buffalo. I mean, they haven't won basically anything except I think for the Sabres one year. But that's a pretty successful small market up there.
Yeah, good one, Tone. Thanks, appreciate you. Buffalo, as far as the NHL, by far the smallest market is Buffalo. My guess would be second. Our buddy brought up Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's a lot smaller than I think. But when I think Pittsburgh, I literally just think all of Western New York. Excuse me, Western Pennsylvania.
Yeah, you're right. It's technically Pittsburgh, but if we look at the reach, it's bigger. And also, because the Steelers are such a national brand, you kind of just think about them that way. But the reality is, it is a smaller market. Like, how do we define a small market? I think like anything outside the top 10, top 12 would be a small market.
And by the way, he's right. Remember, I think on Friday when I heard that Edmonton had over 1 million people, mind was blown.
Yeah, I understand. I have no idea what goes on in these Canadian towns. If they want to fly me in and hang out, I'll do it. I'll drink your beer.
Yeah, I think that a lot of it is Labatt Blue, Molson Ice.
I love Molson Ice.
Labatt Blue is tremendous.
Canadian beers rule. If we're going to be fair about Canada, the best things they offer, Canada's beer is probably top 3 things. I don't know what the other two are, but beer's top 3.
Yeah, exactly. I was kind of waiting for you to fill out the other two just for fun.
Yeah, maple syrup. Snow's third. Snow would be third.
Right. No, you're right. Literally everybody knows that Canada created snow. So
well, they have a lot of it.
You're on to something.
It's called a surplus.
Yep. Let's see. Who's next? Mike in Orange County, California. Hello, Mike.
What is happening with you guys?
Are you hungover?
Oh, my God. Yeah, I got 2 beers, Patrick, 2 Coronas. Actually, that's a lot for me. I usually don't drink a lot.
Yeah.
2 Coronas. Well, first of all, let me backtrack.
Okay.
Nice drive over. Didn't see you, by the way, on the street or anywhere near Hermosa. Parking was a mess. Where do you park over there?
It is. I'm not going to lie. On the weekend, it is impossible to find a parking spot. You're 100% right.
Dude, it's crazy. Listen, it was great, though. Now, I told Dustin, it wasn't – Cody showed up. Very nice of Cody to show up with his girlfriend. Nice girl, teacher, New York, had a great time. Archana, she did all these, like, decorations, Mad Dog radio things, some handouts, drink tickets. I even got a shirt. Nice little crowd there.
That's awesome.
Know, some friends. It was nice. It was nice. I wish you guys were there. That's all I'm
well, now, let me just explain one thing. Have you guys ever thought, I'm very private. Have you ever thought about the fact that I say I live in Hermosa Beach but I may not really, so part of the reason I couldn't come to the party is because I actually don't live in Hermosa Beach? You know what I'm saying, Mike?
I never thought about that. I know you're in L.A. It could be very interesting. You are kind of that man of mystery. You're absolutely right. Don't tell me you're in the Valley.
Hey, all kidding aside, I think it's awesome what you guys did. Mike, I think you're a great person. Bit of a donk. Hey, did you hear we played the Rome call on Friday?
Oh my God, you guys went nuts on that. I was like, you guys can't get enough of that, can you? You guys cannot. I was on the treadmill listening. People go, Mike, what's that call? People don't even know about it still. They're like, what the hell was that? I go,
yeah.
By the way, I was outside when I made the call. I think you watched. Okay, I went. It was during the COVID time. I went outside. It was hot. He came to me like you said, and what the hell happened?
What do you feel? What goes through your body when you hear that call?
I laugh. I really don't care. I laugh. I love Jim. Jim's great. He's a legend.
I hear you, brother.
It's funny. I've only called him a couple of times. That was one of them.
Yeah, and that was enough. And that was enough.
That was enough.
Hey, I have a question for you. The big guy didn't
Yeah.
show up at the party. That's true. Correct?
No, he didn't show up. Why?
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, Cody was like, "Where's Dustin?" I go, "He's not here." He goes, "Whatever." Cody wasn't happy with you, Dustin.
Yeah,
So,
you want to defend yourself there, big guy.
Yeah, if I was Cody, I wouldn't be happy with me either because I was there to protect him from you. So I understand Cody's concern.
Hey, we chatted. You know what's funny? I called him. He goes, "Mike's a good guy." Like, it's funny. Like when you guys met me, go, "Mike's a really nice guy. He's crazy, but he's a nice guy." We had a nice conversation.
Hey,
Just
Mike,
chatted
I
up
have a question
bit.
for you.
Enjoyed it.
I have a question. Let me save you from you. I have a question for you. If you were to rank the hosts on Mad Dog Sports Radio with, like, kindness towards you, because you can be a bit much, who is, like, nice to not nice to you?
Nice and not nice. Beetle and Decker are definitely very nice.
Okay.
Now, you and I, since you've taken so many of my calls, you're at the top end because you've taken my nutty calls over the years for minutes. Shine.
Well, there's a
kinda in,
difference.
you're
There
out.
are hosts that will take you and just, like, pretend like we're at, like, it's a real conversation, or you can take down that third wall and you actually have a normal conversation
genius
for what
at
it
it.
is, a very
Absolutely.
abnormal conversation. You know what I'm saying?
Look, no one's mean, right? Everybody does their thing.
But it does appear
where
Dog.
it
Is Dog a fan of yours?
You know what? Since we met, a few years ago when he came out and we're in the Pache, a few of us, I think he has a little different idea of who I'm about. Even Eddie's like, "Oh yeah, Mike's a better dinner guest than a caller." That was Eddie's line. That's a brilliant line, and it's probably very true. Since he met me, kind of knows, and he knows I'm loyal, right? He appreciates even though with all this fame he has with First Take, Patrick, he still loves the radio and the callers in the little community. I really sense that.
You know what? All kidding aside, because I've been dealing with a lack of loyalty lately. I'll tell you more in a little bit. Dog is, for all his fame and all his success, he's probably the most loyal dude that I've come across. You're 100% right.
When we met him, Patrick, real quick, I swear to God, we met him. He's the exact same guy, and he's that guy in the red. He's crazy, but he's Russo. How was the drive? How's this? You could tell he's just a good person who's famous with radio, who's great at what he does, who's a legend, right? But he doesn't let it get to his head. That's like you, Patrick. You don't either. You guys are all good at it.
Well,
Listen,
how could you take
a big event one day? Vegas,
yeah, and I'm coming. Yep.
Mad Dog Con. What do we call it? Mad Dog Con? Yeah.
I hear you, brother. See you later. That is true about Dog. Loyalty. It's been something that's been on my mind lately. Loyalty. And he's a real one. But also he's just authentic to who he is. Like, so many people get into the industry. Dustin and I have talked about this, and they're just imposter syndrome. They're trying to be like what they heard. You can't listen to a Mad Dog show, Chris, and think, well, that's anybody but him. And that's something to live by, not just in broadcast, but in life.
And that way for 40 years. Never changed once. Just did him every step of the way, still doing him. And even off the air, as Mike said, because I got to hang out with him, once?
Here's the flex. Here comes the flex.
And the one other time I got to see him in person, and it's literally, he's just being Chris. He's just being the guy on the radio the whole time. And what I would add about the party, Mike, I'm sorry I missed it. I wasn't able to attend. But if you do another one, if Patrick goes, I will go.
Oh, I see what you did. That was very clever. That was very clever.
You jump, I jump, Jack.
But come July 1st, I might have a very good excuse not to be at any sanctioned radio event. That's what I would say on a June 2nd, Dustin Swedelson. That's what
Got a few days.
20 shows, including today. I counted. Yep. I sure did. Now, Hardman with the music. That means we're on our way out. Coming back, we are going to preview the NBA Finals, the Pacers and Thunder. Brad Botkin, CBS Sports. It's VSiN Live, Mad Dog Sports Radio. Good job, Mike, Artney, and the crew with the get-together.
Covering the spread all night long. This is VSiN Live on Mad Dog Sports Radio. covering the spread all night long. This is VSiN Live on Mad Dog Sports Radio. Here's Patrick Meagher and Dustin Swedelson.
Okay, VSiN Live, Mad Dog Sports Radio. Remember, you can check out the daily newsletter over at vsin.com/newsletter. Bill A.D. does a great job. You can check out free picks. Brent Musburger even stops by with cameos in the newsletter. Your betting menu for the day, no better place than vsin.com/newsletter. You enter your email address. There's no obligation. Bam, it'll pop up before you wake up tomorrow morning. As we welcome you back, Ryan Smith, Steady Ryan in Las Vegas, youtube.com/VSiN Live. If you'd like to watch the show, get involved in the chat, we appreciate that. Nia Hardman, back in New York City, thank God. Nia in the house today. Dustin Swedelson, and I'm Patrick Meagher as we welcome you back. Brad Botkin running a little behind. He's going to join us in about 20 minutes or so. Of course, we've got the series coming up, and with the series coming up between the Pacers and the Oklahoma City Thunder, we should just jump backwards quickly to put the Knicks season to bed. Not a great performance in Game 6. I think everybody would agree. We kind of had it. Matt Moore came on and said Indiana's going to blow them out. I'm guessing most people, that number ended up closing what, Dustin, right around 4-ish? 4? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of controversy. A kid that I knew back when he was an intern, Greg Giannotti, does a great job. He hosts a show on The Fan, the morning show with Boomer. And he was in a fight because he called Karl Anthony Towns a loser. But I think the context was he called him a losing player. And then Carl Banks was going at him. There's a lot of frustration. There's a lot of conversation around Karl Anthony Towns and what he means. I'll just say this about Karl Anthony Towns, who wasn't good in Game 6. I thought he was awesome in the series. I think part of the reason that the Knicks were even in the mix, he had a great season for the Knicks. I think the Knicks are a really good basketball team. In fact, I even think the Mikal Bridges hate has gone on too much. I think Mikal Bridges, you can't judge him for what the Knicks gave up. Just judge him for what he can contribute to your team, and I think he's awesome. To be honest with you, the worst player in the series for the Knicks was Josh Hart, and nobody saw that coming. I mean, I think you would agree. Both we love Josh Hart, but he was a no-show in the series. And at times, instead of just killing the Knicks, I know it's more interesting, more intriguing to go to the losing locker room, but Indiana's a damn good basketball team. And after a couple of duds, they proved it in Game 6.
The better team won. I think there's no doubt, and I think that's why the normal Knicks fans are taking this the right way. If you're going to be fair about what you watch, the Pacers were the class of this. They were so much better than the Knicks in so many different ways. And when we look at the Knicks, I think we all got excited because they finally knocked off the Celtics. But let's step back for a moment and realize the slow build that's been happening. Postseason run last year, this year getting to the finals. Let's run it back and build on it again. You look at a team like Indiana, people this past offseason thought the Pacers should break it up, tear it down, start over, add some new pieces. There's something to be said for these guys getting chemistry and playing together and learning each other more. And to me, that's what it feels like with this Knicks team. Now, do I think they need some changes? Yes. And unfortunately, one of those changes I do think is our guy Josh Hart needs to be traded for someone who can shoot. That's something the Knicks lack. They just don't have enough shooters to keep pace with a team like Indiana and some of the other teams in the NBA right now. But I think it was a very successful season. They went a step further than they did a year ago. They were this far from being in the finals. And if I'm going to look at Karl Anthony Towns, he's 29 years old and capable of being the best player on the floor against every team in the NBA outside of maybe 2 or 3 teams. If everyone plays to their full potential, Cat's capable of being that best guy in any matchup. The only way you move on from Karl Anthony Towns is because it's a deal to get Giannis, and I just don't see that being a realistic option right now.
And Karl Anthony Towns, the number's better than I remembered on Saturday. 22 points, 14 boards. All we kept on saying is he has to have double digits in boards, and he consistently did that. I thought he played hard. Hart, not a great performance. No. 4 points, just 21 minutes. Something must have been off. Don't know if he's injured. And what we said about Brunson in Game 5, remember I was just joking about the fact that he had so much energy in Game 5. Well, it was very clear come Game 6. He had left all his energy and effort in Game 5. That dude was tired.
some of the turnovers were inexplicable, just so sloppy with the basketball. It was so many careless mistakes. Like, I'd love to say Indiana forced them into a bunch of the issues that they had with protecting the basketball, but it was the Knicks. The Knicks were just so careless. I didn't understand in such a big moment with so much on the line to force a Game 7 to not be dialed in on the details. It was so unlike what we'd seen from this team for so long. They ran out of gas again. They just didn't have enough shooting. They didn't have enough scoring. They have no bench help. And I'll come back to Josh Hart one more time because he's a great rebounder, but he's not a great defender. He's a good defender. He's not a great defender, and he's a negative offensively. So it's like, it's just hard to compete when that guy's on the floor as much as he is when he's not helping you stretch the floor and hit big shots.
Yeah, you mentioned they had 17 turnovers and shot 28% from three.
Yeah, and free throws, 65% from the free throw line. That's unacceptable in a Game 6.
Yeah, but it is so interesting with the Knicks, and let's get it out of the way. Tibbs is not going anywhere. So if you're and you've already planted your flag, Team Tibbs as a Knicks fan. Knicks fans, get used to it because Thibodeau's not going anywhere, nor should he. He just took a team to the Eastern Conference Finals and got beat by the better team. Tibbs isn't going anywhere.
Imagine you're at your job and you improve year over year at what you're doing. You would not get fired from your job. Tom Thibodeau just took his team to the Eastern Conference Finals. They improved on the year prior. He should not be fired. This team got better. They played better. They were actually better in the postseason than they were in the regular season. That's all you can ask. He actually made adjustments. He made changes to how he does things. He showed he's willing to grow and not be stubborn. Tom Thibodeau should be the head coach of the New York Knicks next year. This is crazy.
Before we get to the Pacers, you mentioned potentially trading Hart. What are the fixes here? The mix? I feel as though the Knicks need a ball handler that Jalen Brunson trusts. That's what I think they need. I think they need some because Brunson right now, it's his team, and you can tell when he doesn't have the ball, he doesn't trust much around him.
Yeah. So the deal is the number one move for the Knicks is Giannis. The question is, what's Milwaukee going to get? Who dictates the deal? Is it Giannis getting to choose his next destination, or is it Milwaukee trying to get the most value for Giannis in a package, right? We don't know how that's going to play out. I feel like the Bucks are going to do right by Giannis, let him choose, and he could very well want to choose New York. And with that, Karl Anthony Towns and Josh Hart together in a deal for Giannis would make sense, and then you could stagger when Brunson's off the floor, Giannis could run the point. And then when they're on together, they can kind of do some sort of rotation where each one controls the basketball. I think that is the dream scenario. I don't know how likely that is. That's why I think for the Knicks, what they need is a lot of Nembharts. Guys like that, off the bench, that can run, that can shoot, that can defend. TJ McConnell's, I think when you look at how Indiana put together their bench, that's what you want. You want someone who can pick up the tempo and who can score, and there's no drop-off when the second unit comes on. That's what the Knicks desperately need. Outside of that, if they keep this core together, you go into a season where it's Brunson, it's Cat, it's OG, Bridges, and Mitchell Robinson in your starting lineup. That is a very good team with three elite defenders at their positions and a bunch of guys who can get buckets. It's the depth they desperately need, the depth scoring off the bench.
Yeah, I think I agree I think the Giannis Brunson combo in New York would be freaking awesome. Here's what I do think you're going to have to give up a lot. And would Milwaukee want this? Would Milwaukee want Cat, Hart, and Bridges?
I think they would want at least two of the three for sure. They're not doing Cat for Giannis straight up. And if you're the Knicks, you do that move. You pull that trigger. If it's Cat and Bridges or Cat, Bridges, and Hart for Giannis, you have to do that.
No,
it's
totally
impossible.
agree.
And then players will just sign vet league minimums to be a part of a championship quality team in New York.
Yeah, no. For me, if Milwaukee said, we want Karl Anthony Towns, we want Josh Hart, we want Mikal Bridges. For the Knicks, it's like, okay, we'll drive them to you.
Yeah.
The question is that what Milwaukee is in such a rebuild. They don't have any picks. They've got
That's
nothing.
the problem.
Do they want those three to build around? Cat's going to be 30. Hart's probably the same age-ish.
Yeah, does Milwaukee want to not have a major drop-off coming off the Giannis era, or do they want to tear it down completely? Because they don't have any of their own picks, that does hurt right, in the draft pick game, because they'd be trading for another team's picks that thinks they're contending. So it's not like those picks are going to be lottery picks as is. And with not having your own picks and having a bad roster, losing doesn't matter. You're not tanking for anything. You're tanking for other teams who have your picks from the Lillard trade and other moves to use those picks on high-end players. That's why I think the Knicks package could be intriguing, because I do believe the Knicks can offer the best package for the Bucks to not have a major drop-off in year one after Giannis.
I think what the Bucks can the Knicks offer picks. I'm sorry if you just said that, but I think what the Bucks are going to be looking for is also assets by way of draft picks.
Well, that's the conundrum here, my friend, because the Knicks did send 5 draft picks for Mikal Bridges. The Knicks have 2 picks in 26, their own, and a Washington pick that's protected 1 through 10. And you have to imagine the Washington Wizards will be picking in the top 10, so they will have their own pick then. And then the Knicks don't have a first rounder until 2028. And then they have one again in 2030. So, no, the Knicks do not really have picks to trade in a deal for Giannis. All they can offer is talent.
But the fascinating part is what you said. I do believe Milwaukee is going to acquiesce. They are going to do something you don't see in sports, and that's be diplomatic with a superstar that brought him a championship and brought him so much, and that's Giannis. Giannis is such a decent person. Milwaukee seems like a decent organization that's going to want to make him happy. And if he wants to go, I think they're going to do that.
And let's look at what the other teams can offer, right? The Spurs offer an intriguing package because I believe they have picks and they have De'Aaron Fox potentially in a trade. I don't believe that Milwaukee's doing the deal without getting De'Aaron Fox back. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
Correct.
The Rockets have a lot of talent, but they're a good team. So how do we value their draft picks coming up in the next 2 or 3 drafts? That team's going to be a contender in the West. You're going to trade Giannis for pick 25, pick 28 in upcoming NBA drafts? The Nets are 18-1, but do we consider Brooklyn a big market? Does Giannis want to go play for the Nets where there's not talent around him on that roster? And then you have the Knicks and Raptors, where the Raptors package would be Scotty Barnes and a couple other pieces potentially there. Again, I'll come back to the Knicks. The Knicks afford you an opportunity to still be a playoff team year one following Giannis. I don't believe these other teams do, and I don't know if these other teams have the picks that allow you to rebuild properly in today's NBA.
Yeah, I don't know what the Toronto pick situation is, but if it's Barnes, another useful player, and a bunch of picks, that might be something that intrigues Milwaukee. Barnes is super young. Look, the problem with Houston is Milwaukee's going to want only one player, and Houston is not giving up on Amen Thompson.
No, you can't. You could, because is his ceiling Giannis? Maybe not, but it may not be far off.
Yeah,
that is far off.
That is a player that I think is as close to untouchable as we have right now.
Yeah, was he 21 years old? 22?
He's a child. So the Giannis piece is fascinating. So that's the Knicks. I think it would be great theater for Brunson and Giannis. You know, Brunson all of a sudden becomes by far and away not the best player on his own team. That it's his team. But Giannis has the type of personality that it's not going to bother Brunson.
No, and Giannis is the great unicorn too here, because there isn't a roster where Giannis doesn't fit. You can't find a team in the NBA where Giannis, because he can play the 1 through the 5. He can defend the 1 through the 5. He can do everything on the basketball floor you need a player to do. If you need him to play the center, he'll play center. You need him to run point, he'll run point. He is such a freaking unicorn out there. He works in any situation. If he came over to the Knicks, it would still be Brunson's team, but they could use a guy like Giannis. They could use a guy with the effort that Giannis shows. And obviously, he still has, 5 more years?
Well,
of being
yeah,
in his
I mean,
prime?
there's 3 players on the planet, and then there's a chasm, and then you can argue Jokic, SGA, and Giannis, whatever order you want, but those are by far and away the 3 best players on the planet, and then you start having conversations about everybody else. Giannis is a game changer, so that's the Knicks. Here's what we'll do: we had to start with the Knicks. The big guy is a fan of the Knicks. Great season for the Knicks. That was the conversation. We asked the Knicks blogger last week, would this be a successful season if they got bounced in the Eastern Conference Finals? Of course it is. You're a Final Four team. You pick up the pieces and figure out how to get better next year. But coming down to the Final Four and going 6 games, I would say resounding success. And Indiana's a very good basketball team. What we'll do So we'll take a quick break and come back and talk Indiana basketball and the matchup, which maybe the ratings won't show it, but basketball heads are going to freaking love Oklahoma City and Indiana. That's facts. Brad Botkin, CBS Sports, is going to join us next to discuss. It's VSiN Live, Mad Dog Sports Radio.
This is VSiN Live on Mad Dog Sports Radio with Patrick Meagher and Dustin Swedelson. Now back to VSiN Live on Mad Dog Sports Radio with Patrick Meagher and Dustin Swedelson.
Okay, VSiN Live, Mad Dog Sports Radio, as we welcome you back. Dustin Swedelson, I'm Patrick Meagher. Hope you had a nice weekend. We do have, again, a bit of a respite as you get the Stanley Cup Final underway in Edmonton on Wednesday, and then we've got to wait till Thursday for Game 1 in Oklahoma City as far as the NBA Final. Obviously, a lot of the conversation NBA-wise in particular is going to be around the fact that, is this going to rate Oklahoma City and Indiana? I'm not sure, but I do know as a basketball fan, give me all of this, even if it is a sweep. And we're going to talk to one of our guys when it comes to the NBA. You can read Brad Botkin at CBS Sports, does a great job. And we say hi to Brad. Maybe you heard just the tail end of our Knicks conversation, so let's do that for Dustin and move on from the Knicks. But I will ask you, if you were making moves in this offseason and you're in the Knicks front office, where would you start?
It's really interesting how the lens through which you look at the Knicks, because I think at the beginning of the season, if you would have said they're going to beat the Celtics, they're going to go to the conference finals, this is a team that not too long ago was completely irrelevant. And then the bar got raised low enough that, or high enough, but still pretty low, that like, let's just make the playoffs, the Julius Randle teams. And then all of a sudden, like, you miss on Donovan Mitchell, you miss on Kevin Durant, and all that stuff ends up sort of being blessings in disguise. And you end up with this team that has a longer window than some of these win now teams that get put together, like the team across the way in Brooklyn. So I actually think, the disappointment notwithstanding of how the season ended, I would not be in a rush to do much of anything. I think if you looked at the Cat trade market, I wouldn't not answer the phone if somebody called about Karl Anthony Towns. I'm thinking like a Phoenix, and if you become like a third team, I probably wouldn't try to run back the Kevin Durant pursuit. But if you could become a third team in that, and I don't know who exactly you would be targeting, and you sent Cat out to Phoenix to play with Booker, if Phoenix would be interested in that, if they wanted to expedite that, I wouldn't not pick up the phone. But I think all in all, in the Eastern Conference, where Boston's pretty much taken next year off, Cleveland showed that despite and they did have some injuries, but they're not some unbeatable team. And now Darius Garland and Jared Allen might be on the market. Who knows with Philadelphia? You have this sort of luxury of being in the Eastern Conference that I would be looking for some depth. I might be asking myself if Tom Thibodeau is the coach. Sometimes coaches are good to take you from bad to good, but not necessarily good to great. I might think about that, but I wouldn't be looking at this season of like, man, we weren't good enough. We got to really shake this up. I think one of the coolest things the Knicks did was put together a team that didn't have to do it in 1 year. And they have these guys that are roughly on a similar timeline. You've got a bona fide superstar in Jalen Brunson. You've got your offense is pretty set. Whether you can ever be a good enough defense with Towns is, I think, really the question beyond the depth. But I wouldn't really be looking at this season as anything other than a pretty big success, in my opinion.
Yeah, and look across the way at Indiana, right? They did the same thing where they reached a certain point and they ran back basically the same roster and improved from a year ago. The Knicks just improved on what they did a year ago. But you also caught me with my pipe dream of Giannis being a possibility for the Knicks. On a scale of 1 to 10, how crazy do you think it is where the Cat offer could be one of the best ones Milwaukee could find out there?
Oh boy, if Milwaukee traded Giannis, and again, this we always have to talk about these things in reality and in how they would, in a vacuum. In a vacuum, if Milwaukee traded Giannis for Cat, it'd be like, get out of here. What are you guys doing? Like you would do it to reset, to get picks and set up your whole next wave, not to just demote yourself with a worse player that's still on the same timeline. But if Giannis comes in and says, I want to go to the Knicks, then it's not in a vacuum anymore. You could say the same thing about the Warriors in an open bidding market. They don't have the package to put together for Giannis. But if Giannis says, I want to play with Steph Curry, they're going to figure out a way to get it done. I would think that on paper, this is excluding if Giannis comes in and says, I want to go to the Knicks, in which case all bets are off. I think the Knicks' way to getting into that talk is as a three-way deal. I just cannot imagine. I mean, look, Luka Doncic got traded for Anthony Davis, so I mean, whatever. But I can't imagine that how we're all going to react if it's like this 2-team trade and now Towns plays for the Bucks and Giannis plays for the Knicks. That's like I can't imagine it. Third team is where my head is at with this, with a lot of Giannis suitors, unless it's just San Antonio or Houston that can just kind of like they can give the assets that the Bucks would want to jumpstart a rebuild, and Giannis would be moving into a competitive situation. It's a 1-for-1 thing. Outside of that, these are and more it's leaning this way in the league where they start to become multi-team trades. And so I think Towns's value is probably higher outside of Milwaukee. I have no idea what Milwaukee would want to do with Towns.
Brad Botkin joining us, CBS Sports. We're going to talk about the finals. I think the Luka trade has ended any crazy trades forever because every front office, whenever they're talking trades, will say, is this going to have Luka type blowback? And Dallas was not expecting what happened. But anyway, I digress.
But there's no. The other thing is that there's no Lukas. You know, it's like if the Giannis trade happens, it's going to at least have had some smoke blowing in that direction. Like, you know, they won a championship. They already checked that box. The Damian Lillard thing didn't work. Lillard blew his Achilles. They have no assets to go out and get any better. These are the typical circumstances under which a relationship just comes to an end and it's time to move on. And those are acceptable from a PR standpoint. The thing that you're not going to be able to do after the Luka deal is just like I'm trying to think if the Spurs just like traded Wemby. You know, it's like it has to be this like thing where you've got this long road ahead of you. You see all these decades of competition and this franchise player that you're going to be married to with your city and your community for years and years, and the rug gets pulled out from under you before you ever see it really even start. I actually don't agree that people are going to be more hesitant to pull trades in general, big trades. I just think they have to be justifiable. This has like taught people like you've got to be able to justify this, and I think you can justify Giannis. You can justify Kevin Durant. It's not working in Phoenix. They got no assets. They've got to restart. Nobody's going to be mad at that. Like it's just like this once in a lifetime thing that the Mavericks did and got away with. By the way, they're going to get Cooper freaking Flag, and
it's so funny.
You know, so like whatever. But yeah, I don't necessarily think. You know, put it this way: if you're thinking about trading a once in a lifetime player for a crippled up 32-year-old, probably don't do it. But outside of that context, I don't even know that you can use that trade as a barometer because it's so off the grid.
Yeah, it's Brad. So I'm sure you've heard Oklahoma City's like $7 favorite, so you have to bet $7 to win $1. Mm-hmm. They're massive favorites. Dustin was framing it for me, you know, one of the bigger favorites we've seen. But contextually, why am I excited for the series? Because I am excited for the series with the Pacers and Thunder.
Yeah, totally. I think, you know, Dustin and I have to be careful. Every time we come on here, you know, pumping up the Thunder, I think that the other night we were laughing at that 2-point line in Minnesota in Game 3. They won by 50. They won by 50. Like, what is happening? But yeah, the Thunder are. I think a lot of people. I'm really reminded of the 2015 Warriors, where there's a hesitance to accept the level of greatness that team is. I think, you know, slowly we've accepted that they're probably the best team in the league, and maybe even one of the top 30 teams ever. But this notion that which the statistics will support, highest point differential ever, they're going to end up with wins at like 83 or 84, whatever it's going to be, 68 and 16. They're going to be one of the all-time teams on paper, and yet I'm with you, Patrick, that I think this series is going to be one of those series where all the games are really entertaining. I think about the Pacers and the Celtics last year in the conference finals, where all those games were really entertaining, but you're going to look back in 20 years and it's going to say sweep. And I think Oklahoma City's going to win this series in 4 or 5. If I had to bet my life on it, I would say Indiana gets either game 3 or 4 in Indiana, and they close it out in game 5 in OKC. But I think there's going to be 3 really, really fun competitive games. I'm actually making my predictions right now. I think OKC is going to blow them out twice. They've had 2 at least 20-point wins in every series so far. There's going to be 2 games where Indiana catches a beating. But I think there's going to be 3 games, or maybe 4 if it goes 6, where Oklahoma City's going to win, but it's going to be really fun basketball because of the contrasting styles, because it's the classic great defense against the great offense. There's a lot of for basketball nerds, there's a lot of lineup adjustments. Do the Thunder have to go small? Because if they don't, then you're dealing with the Pascal Siakam's a weird matchup, and he can guard one of the bigs. And then but if they go small, then maybe Siakam can spend some time on SGA. If he doesn't, and when Neesmith goes out, Nembhard has to guard SGA. And there's all these kind of like, what can Indiana do to survive defensively, like so that they don't have to score, because they're not going to score 120, 125 points against the Thunder. So I do agree. I think the Pacers are a super fun team to watch. I think it's cool for the league that, this is the first, I was looking into this. This is the first finals since 1971 where both teams are outside of a top 20 market. You have to go back to Baltimore and Milwaukee in 1971. So there's always, the years that whoever the Spurs make it, they're a low market. Milwaukee's made it in 21, they're a low market, but they're always playing a Phoenix or a Lakers or a Boston or whoever. It has been a very long time since both teams have been in this small of a market. And I think it's a pretty cool litmus test for how many people actually love good basketball. There's going to be a lot of fun basketball in this. There's a lot of sort of like the next wave of marquee players in the league being showcased that play for not glitzy cities. And it's going to maybe at least start to answer some questions of how dependent the league continues to be on the Knicks and Curry and LeBron. Hopefully not. And so I wouldn't worry too much about the ratings because, look, the TV contract's locked up for what, the next decade or something? So they're not trying to sell themselves immediately. But just as a barometer for the way that the league is being consumed now, maybe we're all in a bubble. Maybe we all think everybody knows how great Halliburton is because we all talk NBA every day. But maybe there's going to be a segment of the population that, and maybe even SGA and the Thunder to a degree, they're like, damn, these guys are good. Like, who cares if they don't play for the Knicks? I'm hoping that that's the case.
Brad, I'm always confused by the notion of the finals are going to stink because it's not major markets. Like, I know you lock in all of those fan bases, but there's also a big portion of the country whose teams did not make the finals, and then we're going to watch whoever it is regardless. So I'm always fascinated by that. But you touched on it. These 2 teams come from 2 cities that aren't destinations. And maybe you could frame this for me because I'm still working it out in my head. But both these teams missed the postseason from 2020 through 2023. They missed 3 seasons in a row, 2 years to build back up, and now they're both in the finals here in this situation. Whereas you look around the league, teams like Washington still struggling to get it right. The Hornets can't get it right. There's so many teams that struggle. Why did these 2 franchises figure out in non-destination cities how to build these rosters into what they've become?
Okay, so good question. If I knew the total answer, I'd go apply to be a GM somewhere. But the first thing that I would say is trade Paul George. So the connection the connection here is pretty undeniable. The Thunder really, this whole thing started in 2019 when they traded George to the Clippers. They get SGA and that huge haul of picks back. Okay, so that kickstarts it, and then everything went right from there. They just kept acquiring draft picks and all the peripheral moves that they made. They drafted the right guy at 12, I think it was, in Jalen Williams. Chet Holmgren was a gimme. That wasn't everyone would have drafted him at 2. But you got to make the right draft pick. The Wizards, who have they drafted? Who was the kid from Wisconsin? Johnny.
Oh my gosh, he shouldn't even been drafted.
Yeah, he's playing.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
probably playing in Turkey or something. I don't know, but yeah, you got to hit those.
Johnny
you know,
Davis. Oh
Johnny
my God,
Davis.
I don't
He's not an
remember him.
NBA player.
Yeah,
He's
and they
not
got Abdia, and then now he's in Portland, and they've. It's always a very fine line when a player doesn't immediately hit. Like how long we've had this conversation, how long you stick with them. I mean, Abdia might have been a guy that he's on a bargain contract. Maybe they gave him up too early, But realistically, what if you want to take Washington as the example? They just held on to Beal too long. They held on to the idea that we can be competitive for too long, and OKC didn't. That's if you want to take something from this in 2019 or whatever. Like they got rid of George. A lot of teams would have said, we got a good thing here. We got Westbrook, we got George. We're a playoff team. But it's like they saw the forest through the trees, and they cut the bait early while there's still a bunch of value, while you can still extract a ton of stuff in return. I mean, I think they got 4 draft picks for what was clearly a depreciating Russell Westbrook. I think they got 4 first rounders, 2 swaps, and 2 first rounders from Houston. So they got way out ahead of this thing. And they end up with this. So to me, if you were going to take a lesson from the Thunder, it would be to know when to cut bait before it's obvious. And that's what the Wizards didn't do. It had to become thrown in their face. Like you're going to be. The Bulls have not done this. They waited way too long to trade Caruso and DeRozan and Levine and all these guys to where they extracted no value. So don't wait too long. Be ahead of it, which is not an easy decision to make, to cut ties with a first round team because you have visions of becoming a finals team. It's tough, but those are the tough decisions. And then as far as Indiana, yeah, you've got to hit on a guy like Halliburton, which they did via trade. Then you have to not be afraid to pull it. Now there's going to be trades. If you go back and you look through even the last 5 years, there's going to be trades, a Pascal Siakam type trade that didn't work out. And they're going to say, man, they gave up too much for him. I remember when Pascal Siakam was on the block for the Warriors. I follow all the Warrior stuff, and I remember specifically, quote, he doesn't move the needle. He's not a needle mover. So they don't make the move. Same as they didn't make it for Lauri Markkanen. Now, it's not always a bad move. Some best moves are the ones you don't make. But Indiana made the move. They could have easily said, look, we're a nice team. How much better does Pascal Siakam really make us? And been hesitant to pull that trigger. So once you have the player like Halliburton in place, which was a sort of a more obvious trade. Halliburton for Domantas Sabonis was an obvious trade from Indiana's standpoint. You're getting a foundational piece at the point guard position. Okay, you make that trade. But now that you've got Halliburton, now you have to start asking yourself, Halliburton and Siakam, listen, in a vacuum, that doesn't sound like a championship duo. A lot of teams, the Warriors, in fact, were one of them, would have just said, Siakam's just not enough. It's too many draft picks for that. And they kind of hold off on that second move that for the Pacers ended up working huge. Like Pascal Siakam has turned into basically an all NBA level player with Indiana. And then from there, you build smartly, you build by depth. Like it's a multi-tiered thing. Where in Oklahoma City, they had the really valuable assets. They just had to figure out what time to cash them in. They did it at the right time. Indiana had to do some stuff that I think is a more replicable blueprint for another team to try to try to follow, because not every team's going to have a Westbrook or a Paul George where they can go dump them and get a huge return. So the way that Indiana did it was taking a kind of a flyer, maybe an overpay in a vacuum for Siakam, maybe the same way the Knicks, you would say, maybe they overpaid for Anunoby. Maybe they overpaid for Mikal Bridges in a vacuum, but for their team. 5 picks is a lot for Mikal Bridges. $200 million is a lot for OG Anunoby. But it makes sense for their team. So I think the Pacers did that very well, where they made moves that worked for their team. And then once you kind of nail those core moves, then you build around the edges. And that, to me, is almost luck. Does a Mathurin hit? Does a Toppin hit? Does a TJ McConnell hit? Does a Nembhard hit? Those parts, I think, are very difficult to get right. Those are the ones that, when you find a Derek White in San Antonio and then he goes to Boston and it's like, but there's a lot more of those guys where you thought they were going to be good and they didn't end up being that good. So I think you get the core guys and then you focus on depth instead of the top heavy thing, and you hope that your depth comes through. That's what I think happened for the Pacers. Is those? I mean, Neesmith was a cast off in Boston. Nembhard is like he's a starting level point guard. Who saw that? Miles Turner was on the trade block for years. Everybody's going to get Miles Turner. All of a sudden, they got this kind of stretch shooting five that everybody wants. So all those pieces that I think at any given point in time could have been seen as kind of cast-offs almost have really, really found a home. But it starts with Halliburton and Siakam for sure.
That's a great breakdown, Brad Buckin. I was thinking on Saturday why I love Halliburton so much, and it's a little context. I grew up in Michigan with Isaiah Thomas. I'm not going to compare anybody to Isaiah Thomas, but that purity of a point guard. When I'm watching Halliburton, I'm like, that's just a pure point guard, and you don't see that pureness from a point guard as much these days.
Yeah, with all that, I think we talked about this last time. I wrote about that. He's an old school point guard, but he has the modern bells and whistles. He's got the flair. He's got the size. He's got all the things that come with modern point guard play. But he has the throwback, pass first, organize your offense, don't turn the ball over, possession valuing part of his game. I forget where this came from because I think it's one of the great comparisons I've heard. I got to credit it, but I can't think of it right now. But I saw on Twitter today that somebody said Tyrese Halliburton is the fully realized version of what Lonzo Ball was supposed to be. And I thought that was so great because Lonzo Ball was a fit. He plays with pace. He is a get everybody involved. He is a hot potato passer. He does not hold the ball and dribble. He is not a James Harden, Trae Young type point guard. He's a point guard with size. He's a point guard that has the modern flair, but is actually kind of a very rigid guy. He doesn't that coming out of UCLA, if you could have, before we knew Halliburton existed at this level, if you could have saw future Halliburton, it's like a funky looking jump shot that actually becomes like a weapon. A guy who's not a shoot first score guy, but can get you 20, can sort of be in the limelight of the game while only scoring 8 points. That's what he was at UCLA. He'd score like 10 points, and he was the best player on the floor. Pace, ball movement. Everybody loves playing with him. Magnetic without being the dunker. I think that was one of the best comps I have heard. That I think if Lonzo Ball doesn't injure himself, Tyrese Halliburton is the player that he was supposed to become all along. I think Tyrese Halliburton is such a great view of what Lonzo Ball could have been.
What's the matchup you're most looking forward to in this finals? Like the one that you think will decide it? Because I just keep coming back to Oklahoma City just takes the paint away, Brad. And Indiana kind of just wants to stay in the perimeter anyway, so that fascinates me how that plays out. What's the matchup, if it's player versus player or scheme versus scheme or style versus style, that you think jumps out that will decide the series?
I think corner threes are going to play a big part in this. The Thunder give that up, even though they guard the 3-point line very well. They're willing to compromise some of those corner threes to cut off driving lanes. I think there's going to be a lot of open look. It's not a player for player matchup, but I'm really paying attention to how quickly Oklahoma City, and they're going to do this. That's why they're a great defense, but how quickly they get back out to those shooters. Because Indiana's going to have to make a bunch of threes to have any chance in this series. And it's probably not going to be open threes because the Thunder will give them to you, but they recover so fast. And so I'm very curious if Nembhard has been shooting at like an unsustainable level. I think currently he's like one of the top 5 playoff 3-point shooters ever by percentage. So like it like has to regress. But like can see these guys that like shoot some nights and don't shoot others, like Siakam, Toppin, even Halliburton to a degree, Neesmith. Are these guys going to make contested threes? To me, that's the only chance. When Miles Turner is pulling Hartenstein or Holmgren, whoever's guarding him, when he's pulling him out of the paint, is he punishing him? Is he making threes? To me, we're going to talk about the pace a lot. We're going to talk about, can Indiana take care of the ball, not turn it over? Halliburton's a low turnover guy, but Oklahoma City creates turnovers like madmen. We're going to talk about all those things. But at the end of the day, I don't think Indiana has any chance unless they are bombing away from three. Now, they're 40% from three, an unbelievable number as a team through the playoffs so far. Oklahoma City is allowing three-pointers at a 33% rate. So they're defending the hell out of the three in the playoffs. Is Indiana going to be able to stay near that 40% mark? Or does it slide somewhere in the middle? They end up shooting 35. Not going to be enough. So it's not necessarily a one-on-one player for player matchup. Nobody can keep up with SGA. Halliburton, I think, has to be aggressive to score. You saw the difference in the Knicks series. There's games where he's aggressive to score. There's games where he's not. When he's not, the Pacers aren't quite as formidable. I think he's got to be pressing the scoring button every game, not twice in the series. But from a macro standpoint, Indiana's got to make threes, and they're going to have to be contested threes. Where I think Indiana they're used to, they get in the paint, they play with so much pace, that generally creates open looks. But OKC can play at that pace, can cut off your paint drives, and still recover. And so those contested shots, I'm very curious if Nesmith and Nembhard and Halliburton continue to be world-class shooters with that kind of contest.
Yeah, good luck, Pacers. I'm at a point with Oklahoma City where anybody that's going to play them, I'm like, yeah, good luck with that. Good luck with that defense.
Especially the way they're letting
so
them
good.
defend. It's so physical. There's so many waves of guys. Dude, I was down at the YMCA playing on Sunday, and there was this guy who was dogging me full court. And I was like, oh, listen, I'm 47, so whatever. But it's still if it's all relative, this is my finals at the YMCA on Sunday at 9 a.m. I'm like, dude, can you just leave me alone? And I feel like that's what it's like playing the Thunder.
Yeah.
As soon as you get rid of Caruso, here comes Dort. And as soon as you get rid of Dort, here comes Jalen Williams. And as soon as you get rid of him, then here comes Wiggins. And then some Cason Wallace shows up. And I just feel like it literally, I bet you that NBA players feel the same way I feel at the Y. It's like, dude, I'm trying to get some cardio in here. Leave me alone. And I think that's what it feels like playing the Thunder. It's just like that. Oh my God. And it just wears on you. It's like probably what it's like when you see that Drew Holiday's guarding you in a game. It's like, it's not like any other night. It's like, God damn it, we're going to have to lace him up tonight. Even if I don't have the ball, he's going to be in my space just as I run up the court. You're uncomfortable, you're tired, and I'm very, very curious if Indiana can, in Halliburton in general, or specifically, can he really only turn the ball over one or two times a game against that kind of pressure? These things he's been able to do against the Knicks and against the Bucks. I'll be very impressed if he can. But if they're going to have any chance, he's going to have to. They can't fall into the turnover trap. They're going to get murdered, and they have to make threes. So, sounds simple, but yeah, I'm with you. I wouldn't want anything to do with OKC. They make things very unenjoyable.
Well, as a fellow 47-year-old, I just got sore thinking about running at the Y. Brad Botkin, CBS Sports NBA writer. Go read him. It's great stuff. At Brad Botkin, CBS on Twitter. Brad, we'll talk to you soon. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks, guys.
Okay. Thank you, Brad. Appreciate it. We'll come back with your calls to see Tony is hanging. Yes, Frank Ragnow has retired, which is a bummer for Lions fans. And then, big guy, we got a bet on this Mets-Dodgers game coming up tonight as well. It's VSiN Live, Mad Dog Sports Radio.
This is VSiN Live on Mad Dog Sports Radio with Patrick Meagher and Dustin Swedelson.
morning, 11 Eastern. Bruce Murray and Kirk Morrison are discussing the latest news from around the National Football League. They will do their 2025 previews. It's Tennessee Titans and Cleveland Browns tomorrow. Listen on NFL Radio Channel 88 and on the Sirius XM app. VSiN Live, Mad Dog Sports Radio, Dustin Swedelson. I'm Patrick Maher, and this is our friend Tony in Detroit. It's a sad day, Tony. It's a sad day.
Sad day. Can I touch on two things real quick before Frank?
Go ahead.
Okay, too bad our Pistons, when they needed a point guard in 2020, selected Killian Hayes instead of
in real time, I was on the air. It was a disastrous play. It was a disastrous pick.
Okay, and the other thing I'm going to touch on is reading between the tea leaves, Patrick. If July 2nd, I don't know what you were hinting at earlier, I've been listening to Sirius since January 9th, 2006. If my boys in the RAF are no longer here, if that's what I read right, I will cancel in all 4 vehicles. I will be done. I've been 19 years. I will not.
You're the best. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do anything drastic. But I would say, stay tuned. It's going to get interesting. That's what I would say.
My boys better not leave again. That hit me like worse than Frank. Okay.
I hear you, brother.
What kind of day? This is a rough day for a Monday here in the Peak. But hey,
I couldn't believe. Hey, listen. When I saw the Frank Ragnow news, now in retrospect, because of the injuries, it makes sense. But I was shocked.
Okay, yeah, obviously still shocking. But I'll tell you what. This was actually talked about last year. There was some rumblings. He has been beat up for 3 years. 3 years. And there was talk last year leading into camp. They said, he was this and that. And it tells you why. Now, Brad Holmes, I'm sure this inside they had some kind of inkling. 2 of their 4 picks were guards. Okay, a kid from LSU, a kid from Georgia. They're not centers. They will praise Frank Ragnow. I'm not saying that. But Brad Holmes had to have a little inkling that he's losing an interior, possibly losing one of his best interior linemen to take 2 guards with 2 of your first 4 picks. So, like we say here, Patrick, I feel you're a little down on the Honolulu Blue. I know.
I'm nervous. Defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, now arguably their best player. Nervous.
Okay, but the whole defense is back. We're not signing guys from Home Depot to play defense in Week 15. So the defense will be back. In Brad, we trust. In Dan, we trust. Let's go, Patrick. We're still top in the NFC. We're still going to be battling, baby. Let's go.
All right, Tony. All right, I believe you. It's a brutal schedule. It's a brutal division that's only getting better. I think the Ben Johnson loss to Chicago. I think Chicago's going to score 1 billion points again. Eyeballs. I've never seen a guy call a game like that before, and I think there's going to be an impact on the Detroit Lions. That's all, Dustin. That's all.
Well, it's tough. When you get worse and everyone around you gets better, that's the only logical solution we can come up with. And that's the reality for the Lions, is that window may have been last year, and the New York Knicks, we were talking about them missing out an opportunity game 1 against the Pacers. The Detroit Lions last year may have missed out on a bigger opportunity with the way things went in the NFC for them.
So we've been obsessing over Edmonton, and we've been taking a ton of calls from Canada. It does feel like there's a nationalistic pride outside of Calgary, is what I understand, for the Oilers. Somebody called us last week and said, you dumb American. I get it, tariffs. You dumb American. You don't understand. This is not about the Oilers. This is about Connor McDavid. So I said, well, let's get the answer. Reed Wilkins, who hosts Sports Talk in Edmonton, is going to join us next here on VSiN Live, Mad Dog Sports Radio.
Covering the spread all night long. This is VSiN Live on Mad Dog Sports Radio. covering the spread all night long. This is VSiN Live on Mad Dog Sports Radio. Here's Patrick Meagher and Dustin Swedelson.
Okay, VSiN Live, Mad Dog Sports Radio. Remember, right now you can sign up for $9, become a VSiN Pro. That means you get everything we offer. You get the picks, you get the guides, you get the splits. Literally. So if you're a season better, it's going to help you. If you're brand new to the game, it's going to help you become a more sophisticated better. Go to vsin.com/subscribe. You use the promo code SIRIUS right now, SIRIUS, $9 through August 1st. Great deal. Make sure you check that out. Okay, so listen. It's a rematch. It's Edmonton. It's Florida. The hockey is going to be freaking awesome. Edmonton is a short favorite in the series, $1.20. And so we need to discuss this. We've been taking a lot of calls from Canada. Some Canadians not being nice to me. I don't know what I did. It seems to be some hostility. And so what we said, we got to go straight to the source. Reed Wilkins is a host there in Edmonton, Monday through Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. on Edmonton Sports Talk. Reed Wilkins on Twitter. And Reed, you said how long-winded should I go? Blow as much wind as you want, because to help us frame Edmonton, the Oilers, Connor McDavid, and I'll start here. You heard me say a caller called last week and said this is not about the Oilers. This is about the coronation and Connor McDavid getting a cup. What's your reaction to that?
Yeah, I found that interesting, and maybe because I'm in Edmonton and we're often all Oilers all the time. Maybe I'm a little detached from what other cities are saying. There's a lot of rivalries between Canadian markets, guys. Like so Canada has not had a Canadian team win the Stanley Cup since Montreal in 1993. I think that that's fairly clear. That's a long time. That's beyond the law of averages, right? Given that about a quarter of the league now is Canadian teams. But I don't know. I don't know if Toronto Maple Leafs fans are going to be happy for Edmonton and the Oilers. Oilers fans certainly wouldn't be happy if the Leafs won the Cup. I don't think Calgary Flames fans as a whole are going to jump up and down if the Oilers win. Certainly Canucks fans won't be. That was a fierce series last year on and off the ice. But it is interesting you got that. And I do think that sentiment is out there, that even though I'm talking about rivalries between cities, there might be some fans who would just say, okay, enough. Like we need to have a Canadian team win the Cup. And in terms of what that person said about McDavid, I mean, you look at these generational players. You can categorize them however you want. A lot of people will go Lafleur, Gretzky, Lemieux, Ovechkin, Crosby, McDavid. I mean, they've all had a cup or several, right? Except Connor McDavid. So a lot of these generational talents, high draft picks, people who come out of junior with eye-popping stats and a lot of expectations, ultimately do get to win the Stanley Cup. McDavid had a big moment in the Four Nations face-off, obviously with that overtime goal. And I know that wasn't the Olympics, but it was the first time, Canada and the States have gone head-to-head in his era with best on best. So that was a big goal for him. So yeah, I do understand that there could be some fans who are saying, Connor deserves one. They've put in the work. They've had other playoff disappointments. They went to Game 7 last year. I'd like to see this guy get the cup. But again, as I stated at the beginning, I do think there's another side of it. There are some pretty fierce rivalries between Canadian NHL teams and between Canadian cities that some cities might be saying, if it's a Canadian team, it's my team. It's not Edmonton.
That's so interesting.
Can I follow up, Dustin, just because let's set the table. Reed, your background, so we can then build from there. You're in Edmonton. Were you there for the dynasty? Give me a little bit of background so we can frame Edmonton from your perspective.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, I can give you a Cole's notes. I was born in 1974 in Southern Ontario, oddly enough, but I've lived in Alberta since I was 1.5. When the Oilers were winning the 80s dynasties, I was living in a small town called Evansburg, about 100 kilometers or 60 miles west of Edmonton.
We needed that.
Yeah, so about a 1 hour drive. When I was a kid and we'd come into the city, the first thing you'd see is West Edmonton Mall. Now the city extends much further to the west than that. So I was I was 10 into my teens when the Oilers were in that dynasty in the 1980s. So I know what that's all about. I saw those teams. I was old enough to understand that they were good and what was happening. I was old enough to understand that Wayne Gretzky was basically sold, not traded. And certainly now doing this job. I mean, I've been a talk show host in Edmonton for 12 years now. The previous 11 years to this one, I was actually on the rights holder station that broadcast the Oilers games, and I did the pre and post game shows. So yeah, it's that's my perspective. And I know one of the things you said when you were introing me, like, let's find out what Edmonton is all about. Look, I could come on here and say that the Oilers winning the Stanley Cup would mean everything to the city, but that would be foolish because I'd be understating it. I mean, this is, I really think, and look, of course, there are other things to do here. There are other passions people have. There are other interests, but Oilers hockey is king, and it's not close. I remember a former program director I used to have at my previous station said to me once, yeah, you have to understand that because you'd have some younger news people start and I don't do sports. I don't need to know about the Oilers, and he would tell them, look, the Oilers aren't just one of the biggest sports stories on any given day of the year. They're one of the biggest stories in the city on any given day of the year. And if they're in the playoffs, which they weren't when I first started hosting, but if they're in the playoffs, they are the biggest story in the city. City council says you never have to pay taxes again. Okay, cool. Who's on the Oilers' second line tonight? You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? It's a little bit of that sort of thing. Yeah, it is. It's part of the culture here, which I think is great. It's a special sports environment to live in. A few years ago, the Oilers started using the phrase "oil country." Welcome to oil country is up in the rink. You're in oil country, banners like that. But the cool thing about that is, guys, when I refer to oil country, and I also think this is what the Oilers meant, oil country is wherever an Edmonton Oilers fan is. And it's that connection. People don't leave Edmonton generally and adopt another team. They stay Oilers fans. I mean, the number of fans over the years that I've interacted with from the Philippines, from Australia, from various parts of the United States. I mean, I know a guy. He was a local theater guy here in Edmonton. He's like an improv guy, and now he runs a comedy troupe in Atlanta. And he texted me last week. He's like, hey, you know what? I bought my pets Oilers gear. I couldn't, like, they needed Oilers gear, like mom and dad have when they're watching the game. So like that's oil country. Of course, it's Edmonton. Of course, it's Northern Alberta, but it's wherever an Oilers fan is, and it's the sense of there's a game on. We care about it. We're all going through this together. It is really a special thing to see.
I'm curious, just because I don't know, at least I don't want to speak for everyone. What is the personality of the Oiler fan base? Because we have so many weird ones in America with a lot of our teams. Like, I am a New York Mets fan, and they are obnoxious. They are annoying. They're woe is me all the time. I'm curious, with all the winning, but not a lot of winning recently with hoisting cups there, how has this Edmonton fan base been, especially of late?
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, it's obviously hard to characterize an entire fan base in one way. And as you guys probably know this, sometimes the people that interact with a sports talk show aren't indicative of the average fan. But certainly it was a fan base that was scarred by what we call here the decade of darkness, 10 consecutive years out of the playoffs. Most of those years eliminated virtually by the end of November. Like, these teams stunk. They weren't like, man, we keep losing on the final day of the regular season. So that was scarring, a lot of bad management decisions, a revolving door of coaches. I think that over the years, now having McDavid, Draisaitl, 6 straight years in the playoffs, there is some belief. But, we also hear a lot of like, oh, God, they're going to find a way to blow it. They're going to find a way to blow it. Oh, here we go. Don't have a goalie. Don't have a defense. Don't have a penalty kill, whatever. So I think there's still that angst that until they do it, until they actually win the cup, that there's still going to be those fans that are like, well, this organization just finds a way to lose. Maybe they're not finishing 30th anymore, but now they're still the runner up. It's still not the Stanley Cup. I still think that angst is out there, but I have to say there's a lot of people that are enjoying the ride. I really do. I especially as they've gone through this playoff run, lost the first 2 games to LA. They're 12-2 since then. And let's face it, guys, they kind of took the Dallas Stars apart. Like the Dallas Stars are good.
Oh yeah.
They didn't quite do that to Vegas, but they kind of beat Vegas at their own game. Like, you want to grind and be miserable? We'll grind and be miserable. We'll beat you 1-0 in overtime. So, but I do think, if they can actually beat Florida this year, it's gonna be a celebration. Like, I almost hate to put it this way, but I do think for a lot of people, regardless of age, even if these people don't say it out loud, there might be that kind of now I can die happy type feeling. You know what I mean? I got to see them win. And even if it's somebody who saw them win in the 80s, that was all clustered together. Maybe even an older fan who saw them in the 80s can say they didn't need Wayne and they didn't need Mark. They did it years after with totally different players under totally different conditions.
That's a great answer. The Reed Wilkins Show, which you can find on all digital platforms, edmontonsportstalk.com, Monday through Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern time. We're getting a perspective here, and we appreciate it. We'll get to the game. We'll get to the players. But then just quickly, is it just Calgary that won't be pulling for Edmonton? The rivalries, help us understand.
Well, Vancouver's really intense right now. Vancouver's really intense because of last year's series. That one's really heated up over the years. And then obviously they played in the playoffs last year. I actually think the Oilers might be more hated by Canucks fans than Flames fans right now. Winnipeg's an interesting one. There's that whole, okay, we'll see how many of your fans get this. There's the whole World Hockey Association connection still between Edmonton and Winnipeg. I think if Winnipeg had won the cup, a lot of Oilers fans would have thought, well, that's cool. Like, it wasn't us that broke the Canadian drought, but they're another kind of smaller city. Edmonton almost lost the team. Winnipeg did lose the team to Phoenix several years ago. Ottawa, I can't even really speak about. Certainly Toronto and Edmonton, I think. But like in Canada too, right? Like, there's this whole Western Canadian dislike for Toronto. Like, you think the country revolves around you and you don't understand the rest of the nation. Certainly with the Leafs fans, I think there's some anger / jealousy because the Leafs were in that draft lottery too to get McDavid. And then they did get Matthews after that. But I think right now the Oilers might be most hated from a fan base from Vancouver.
Reed, I'm curious, do we understand how preposterous it is, though, that other Canadian fan bases may not be rooting for Edmonton when, if the Oilers do not win the cup this year, this would be the state of Florida's fourth cup since Canada has won one.
Right.
One, that shouldn't be possible. But two, what's the perspective of Canadian hockey fans that the state of Florida that doesn't have ice could win their fourth cup since '93?
That's a good question. With some of the southern fan bases, I'm trying to think now because like the Panthers used to be a team that I think a lot of Canadians would laugh at because you'd see a game on TV and there'd be nobody there. And the team often was not that good or mediocre. And I don't know if you guys remember, there was a game, maybe it was about 10 years ago. The glass got knocked out behind one of the nets in Florida and they put in a piece of plywood.
Yeah, I remember that.
So it's kind of like you can't see, right? Those people there. Certainly, I think a lot of Canadians, certainly around here, were ready for the Coyotes to go when you saw that rink being empty. And then, well, they literally moved them to a rink that sat 5,000 people for a couple of years. The flip side of that, though, is a lot of Canadians would be, I can fly to Arizona and get tickets to see my team for cheaper, flight and tickets included, than to go to a game in my home arena, right? So, so I don't know how many people are bothered by teams in Florida winning. I mean, I think we're all knowledgeable to realize that Tampa Bay built a hell of a program, and then now Florida's done the same thing. I think that the interesting thing about specifically the Panthers angle is that Matthew Tkachuk is there, and he was a Flame, right, at the start of his career. So I think last year it's probably stung a lot of Oilers fans more to see Matthew Tkachuk win the Stanley Cup than a team based in the state of Florida.
Okay, so help a national audience understand Draisaitl and McDavid, covering them, personality, the whole package. I always think about Draisaitl, but he's 29. He's going to the Hall of Fame. He's one of the great. I mean, he's improbably good. But then you're like, but there's this other guy. Do they have a relationship, and can you explain the two individuals to us?
Yeah, best I can. I mean, obviously, it's just a professional relationship with them. They themselves have a relationship. I mean, they appear to be extremely good friends. United on and off the ice. I think that's genuine. It's kind of funny, guys. Sometimes I talk about this with people here or with other colleagues in the media. They've from an interview standpoint, they have gotten better. I think maybe that's just them, like, how when you're a little kid, like, your teachers aren't like real people, and then you sort of get into high school or you go to university and you realize, like, oh yeah, like, they're people who chose to teach and they have interest and you can talk to them about other things. I think they treat us a little bit more like that. I'm not saying we go out with them or have a huge conversations, but I think they're a little bit more like, okay, these guys are doing a job. I'll do my best to answer the questions. Certainly, they have moments where they get frustrated or they get tired of things. I don't know if you guys saw the McDavid slap back about their defending, and he's like, we can play defense, okay? Like, how many times do I have to say it? We've actually been able to do it for years. But McDavid certainly can be very guarded. He can be very careful with what he says. He's a little more willing to share an opinion about maybe a hockey issue than he used to be, but I think he's also very aware that, I mean, really, since he's been 8 or 10 years old, that he's in the public eye, and something that he does could get blown out of proportion. Draisaitl is interesting to me because I think he has embraced that he's going to be the grumpy guy, and I don't think he's a grumpy guy at all. Like, I hear that he's pretty funny, and sometimes you see behind the scenes. But I think with the media, he's decided he's going to be the grumpy guy, which I respect in a way. And like, if you ask Draisaitl a good question, you will get a good answer. Like, if you give him something to work with, if you ask him a cliche, you'll get a 4-second response, right? So, they're interesting guys. Like, they certainly know how scrutinized they are. They know that they're the focal points of the franchise, and I just think in this day and age, plus, sorry, just to go on an aside to that, like, you guys know what hockey players are like. Like, it's never about you, right, guys? It's always about the team. Like, hey, Connor, you played 24 minutes and got 4 points. Was that the key to the win tonight? I don't know if you guys saw it. Trent Frederick blocked a shot with 2 minutes left. Like, that's why we won. Like, that's the hockey culture. That's the hockey culture too, right? But it's one of those things, like, I'll probably never really have a human conversation with them until maybe they're retired and they come back as alumni, and then it's all easier then. But you've seen them mature, I think, in terms of their public persona, and you've seen a little bit more in engagement and things like that when they feel it's appropriate.
Can you take us back like a year ago? Chris Knobloch takes over 13 games into last season. It was a surprising move at the time. Gets this team to the final last year. They're back in the final this year. What did you think of the move when that went down, and what has been your experience with him over the course of the last year and a half as the head coach of this team?
Yeah, when that went down, they were 3-9-1, I believe, and just could not score. I was certainly, we were getting the sense that Jay Woodcroft was going to be dismissed. Knobloch's name wasn't on the radar for me. I'm not sure how many people's it was. I mean, was the pre-existing relationship with Jeff Jackson, who was McDavid's former agent, who is now in an executive role with the Oilers hockey ops department. The thing about Chris Knobloch is, when you hear him interviewed, he is extremely level-headed. He's extremely monotone. There's very little emotional variance out of him. Like, I've never really seen him say or do anything that looks like he's flying off the handle. I mean, you might see little interactions with refs, but even those appear very subdued. But that's what he's like. And when he is asked about that, he goes back to his experience coaching junior hockey, where all the players are under 20. And he said, those players are younger. They're not as in control of their emotions. So if I fly off the handle, I'm giving them permission to do it. Right. So I think that sort of molded him as a coach. And then even being in the American Hockey League, where you might have some younger players as well. So when you hear him talk, and you think to yourself, God, is he like this all the time? Like, is he just so even keel? Yes, he is. Yes, he is. But having said that, I mean, he will say critical things of his players and team. He just tends to do them in a very, like, that level-headed delivery. He's not a John Tortorella, or he's not going to have a back and forth with the Brooksy of Edmonton or whoever. But then you've seen with Knobloch, he's not afraid to make big decisions. I mean, last year during the playoffs, he put Philip Broberg in, a relatively inexperienced defenseman, halfway through the Western Conference final with Dallas. Broberg then obviously was taken by St. Louis as a free agent, but he took Cody Ceci out for a game in the Stanley Cup final last year, put him back in. Like, he's not afraid to tinker with things. I could go through tons of moves that we as media and a lot of fans were like, what is Knobloch doing? And then that player or two players go in and play well, or he finds the right line combination. Certainly the big one this year is Kasperi Kapanen, who was a waiver pickup from the Blues back in November and didn't play great in the regular season. He gets put in for game 4 against Vegas, plays quite well, hits and skates, and then scores the overtime goal in the 1-0 win in game 5, and is now a mainstay in the lineup. I think Knobloch is very in tune. Obviously, he knows the game tactically. I mean, if you're the coach of the NHL, you have to. But when he was hired, he said, I watch the Oilers on TV and I see a bunch of guys who don't appear to have a lot of confidence and be having a lot of fun playing hockey. So I think he's very in tune with, let's keep everybody sort of in the groove, that feeling of we're playing downhill. We're not trying to slog through a snowstorm to try to play hockey. And I think it's really worked. Well, I mean, you got to look at his record. I mean, I think it's worked for this team so far.
It has. Reed Wilkins, the Reed Wilkins Show up in Edmonton. You did a great job beautifully framing the Oilers, what it means in Canada. Now let's talk series. Full disclosure, I had them losing to the Kings. And as you said, they were down 0-2. I thought they were going to lose to the Kings. Since then, I think coming into this Panther-Oiler rematch, I think both teams are better than last year. I do. I just think they're both by far and away the two best teams in hockey right now. Are you going to predict the Oilers hoist the cup?
Well, I will. Yes. Short answer to that one. But no. But here's the thing, guys. I just like when you guys know, when you host a show like this, you sort of have to decide what your persona is going to be and how you're going to do your predictions. So first of all, predictions are fun, which I always say. But I also have a personal policy that if the home team is close, I will make the homer pick. If the Oilers were 30 points behind the Kings, I probably wouldn't have picked the Oilers. But they were right there. So I picked the Oilers, and I picked the Oilers in every series. So I am going to pick them in this series in 6 games. But I do think you make a great point. The Florida has Seth Jones. They've added Marchand. I think the Oilers are better than last year because they have Evander Kane healthy. They've added some grit like Trent Frederick. They can bring a guy like Arvidsson or Skinner out of the lineup who are proven NHL players, and can come in and play. I think their defense is better than last year with Wallman and Wallman and Klingberg's their third pair. Like, that's a pretty good third pairing, guys, especially if you compare it to last year's team. And you have McDavid and Draisaitl a year older and a year wiser and incredibly hungry. The biggest difference for the Oilers and why I think they can figure out Florida this year is they have more grit and they have more grind. And I know if there are any analytics people listening, they're going to be mad at the mainstream media guy using those terms. But what I mean is the Oilers are comfortable playing a game that might get a little nasty. And the Oilers are comfortable playing a game along the boards. To win in the NHL, you have to control the middle of the ice, but sometimes you have to win battles along the wall to get the puck to the middle of the ice to begin with. And I really think that started to shine in the Vegas series. I don't know if you guys remember that goal where Evander Kane just ran over Aiden Hill, and Henrique flipped the puck in under his leg. But that was just a behind the net, like almost fullback hockey, force it to the net, and then Henrique can make the skilled play to score. So I think the Oilers are comfortable in that game. I think they're patient in a low scoring game, as certainly we saw against Vegas in that 1-0 overtime win. I do think it's going to be a great series. I think it's going to be extremely physical, but I'll make the homer pick Oilers in 6.
And then the Hyman injury and Skinner. Concerns about one, Hyman, not available, obviously, and then Skinner, who's been playing great. Do we believe it continues, Reed?
The Hyman injury is concerning because he's an excellent all-around player. He's been an absolute wrecking ball. I mean, I don't remember the step. Like he's had like 120 hits or something already in the playoffs. Like it's insane. Plus he can score. That's a big injury. They will get Connor Brown back up front, who is sort of a Hyman-light style of player and has been pretty good in the playoffs the last 2 years. But that is a loss not to have Hyman. But to counter that, the Oilers also got a very important player back on the blue line in Matthias Ekholm, the Viking as he's known. So they lose an important player up front. They get a really important player on the back end. So that helps. Stuart Skinner has been excellent since he came back from being benched after losing the first 2 games against LA. If the Oilers defend well in front of him and limit the grade A opportunities that he has to face, and he keeps making the saves he needs to make, I think he's going to be fine. I get the question marks about Stuart Skinner. Like, it's interesting talking about him, guys, because it's one of those things like two opposite statements can both be true. He did not have a good season. His regular season was subpar. He started the playoffs poorly. He didn't look like the goaltender he was in 23-24. The other side of that argument is he wasn't supposed to be able to beat Arthur Sheloff's head-to-head in the second round last year. He did, with a little help from Pickard. He wasn't supposed to be able to beat Ottinger in the West Final last year. He did. He wasn't supposed to go toe-to-toe with Bobrovsky in the Cup Final. He basically did, though Bobrovsky was probably a little better overall in the series. And then he's pulled, and now he's never going to play again. Well, he comes in and he beats Vegas and Aiden Hill, and then he beats Ottinger again in a Western Conference Final series. So we'll see which player, I guess, maybe ultimately shows up, but I think he's sort of in a groove, and the way the team is defending desperately in front of him, I think he'll be fine in goal.
Okay, I promise. Last question. Connor McDavid. Nationally, he's just recognized as the best, so there's no questions there. But seeing him every day throughout his career, are we almost potentially, if we don't watch hockey consistently, underestimating his greatness?
Maybe. Because I guess for me, I've gotten used to the things that he does. And sometimes I have to remind myself that doesn't happen.
No.
And actually for me, guys, it's some of it is the simpler things. It's not an end-to-end rush necessarily, or a sublime pass or a great wrist shot. Connor McDavid is an automatic zone entry. Like, you guys watch, I don't know how much hockey you watch, but I assume you watch enough. Like, getting the puck into across the other team's blue line is really hard for some players. Like, some players might carry the puck in the other team's zone once a week. Like, he's in. The Oilers' power play starts with him carrying the puck into the zone, and then him and Leon and Nuge go to work, right? Moving the puck around. So you probably do get a little numb to the things that he does. I mean, this year the Oilers' power play actually dropped off a little bit, even though it was still pretty good. But the previous 5 years, it was like some historic pace. And before this season started on my show, I horrified a lot of my listeners because I said, enjoy the power play. Don't criticize it too much, because 10 years from now, we're going to have a power play with neither McDavid nor Draisaitl that can't even get set up. And people were like, I don't want to think about that, Reed. Don't tell me that right now.
You know what? But what is, you said the end to end. What is fascinating for me as somebody that watches hockey, but much more casually, the size he is, and when he starts going downhill, and I'm just thinking right now, maybe it was the game winner in overtime against Vegas, where he just was a Mack truck with the perfect assist. And I'm just like, well, he is special. Like, he's insane. His speed.
Well, and that was the one in game 2 when he ran around. He caught Eichel flat-footed at the blue line, and then him and Leon had 2-on-1. But see, that if that play right starts with Perry chipping the puck into the middle, but like McDavid likes to gather speed, so he wants to come from below the puck and then get it so he can build speed through the neutral zone. And then you can put defenders in a bit of a quandary because they're like, and this is the thing with McDavid, he doesn't favor forehand or backhand. And I was talking about the middle. He's not afraid to drive the middle of the ice. He might take you wide, but he's not afraid to try to split the D. So that's the problems he makes for defensemen. And then he has a very good wrist shot. And then plus he has the vision to find somebody or button hook and wait for trailers. But yeah, a lot of that starts with him trying to get the puck as early as possible so he can be at full speed when he hits the other blue line.
The Reed Wilkins Show, Monday through Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time. It's a good time to go listen this week. EdmontonSportsTalk.com, also available on all digital platforms. At Reed Wilkins on Twitter. We said 20 minutes. You gave us 33. So thank you for that. We needed it, and that was awesome, Reed. Thanks so much.
Okay, thanks for having me. Enjoy the series.
Okay, we will. There goes Reed Wilkins, and we're going to come back with your calls. Also, the big guy, his Metsies here in Los Angeles. We'll discuss VSiN Live, Mad Dog Sports Radio.
This is VSiN Live on Mad Dog Sports Radio with Patrick Meagher and Dustin Swedelson. Now back to VSiN Live on Mad Dog Sports Radio with Patrick Meagher and Dustin Swedelson.
Yeah, you heard the name, Dustin Swedelson. My man, the big guy, is on one. And that confidence is through the roof. Look, I said it for many, many years. When he gets a girlfriend, he is going to be unstoppable.
I mean, still stoppable in other ways. A lot stopped me from doing a lot around the house today that I have a feeling I'm going to get in trouble for later, so we'll see.
I got you, big guy. I got you. All right. There it is.
I can't be too big for my britches because I can't get much bigger.
The britches, they still fit. That's all that matters. All right, Dustin Swedelson, I'm Patrick Meagher. We got you back here. VSiN Live, Mad Dog Sports Radio. I'm going to get to the calls. Just quickly, we do have coming off the Yankees and Dodgers. The Yankees plus 160 yesterday was bananas, by the way. It was crazy. And their team total was 3.5.
And you gave out a winner on Friday with them. I believe you did team total, or was it Dodgers team total on Friday you had?
A little rocking chair. Didn't have to sweat it much.
Like first inning.
Hey, kids in the industry, remember, you hit bets, you'll always be employed. Nah, I'm just playing. It doesn't matter. Big guy, speaking of bets, what do you got tonight? Let's take a look.
It's Paul Blackburn makes his debut for the Mets this season. Paul Blackburn's a nice pitcher. He doesn't miss bats. I also don't love this travel scenario. Mets going to Los Angeles in this spot where the Dodgers took 2 or 3 from the Yankees over the weekend. Dustin May on the hill for the Dodgers, and he's dealt with some injuries, but he's got a live arm. Got off to a hot start this year. I like Dodgers first 5 -0.5 -130. So we'll lay a half run in the first 5 with the Dodgers. Mets are kind of a slow starting offense. I believe the Dodgers hit Blackburn, who just doesn't strike out enough guys, which is also why I'll also go Blackburn under 3.5 strikeouts at plus 105. And then when it comes to hitter-pitcher matchups, I love Jeff McNeil in the lineup, batting towards the bottom. Has pretty decent numbers in a very small sample size. 2 of 3 lifetime with a double against Dustin May. He's 2-1 to go over 1.5 total bases. That's a juicy number at 2-1. By the way, it is summer fruit season. They're very juicy. Bought a peach the other day. It was all over my beard by the time I was done eating it. And that is not a sexual reference. I actually am talking about eating an actual peach. That's what we're going to go with. McNeil over 1.5 total bases, 2-1. Blackburn under 3.5 Ks, and Dodgers first 5 -0.5 run.
See, that's where you get in trouble. You lost me once you started talking about fruit. I have no clue what the segue meant. I don't think you did either. You just went there. It's like I don't. And then it makes me forget your bets.
2-1 is juicy. It reminded me that it's summer fruit
you ate
season.
A peach. Yeah, just focus,
I ate a
brother.
peach.
Focus, brother.
I don't take the ADD meds. I can't.
Speaking of summer, I'm looking right now. You know what time sunset is here in California tonight? 8 p.m.
I was going to say, by you on the water, it's got to be late. It's got to be a little bit later.
8 p.m. You know who else is in California? And once he bailed on the Mad Dog Sports Radio meetup on Saturday, it was game over for the rest of us, and that is Twizzy in Los Angeles. He joins us. Hi, Twizzy.
Hey, man, what's going on, man? You know what? The sun, and let me tell you how good of a day I had. I called you initially when I was at work, and I'm already at home watering my grass.
Let's go. It's beautiful out. This is California, Twiz. Hey, speaking of which, once you sent the message via Twitter, you're going to be at the Yankees-Dodgers game and not at the get-together. It was curtains for me. I was over. Thank you for doing that for me.
I didn't do – look, I'm sorry that I'm loved. My kids, they heard me and my boys talking about the Yankees and the Dodgers game. And they got with my wife and they got me tickets. So I had to go.
That's incredible.
It actually sucked. So
no, but you got to go with the family to the best park in all of the world, and that is Dodger Stadium. And you made it easy. The big guy probably would have went if you went too. So you put a lot of pressure. You took a lot of pressure off of us.
Wait, hold on, Twizzy. Didn't you go Saturday? Didn't you go to the game Saturday?
Yes, and it was
the Dodgers won 18-2.
Exactly. It was non-competitive. And before I sat down and got comfortable after spending $73 for like 4 items, when I sat down and got comfortable, it was already 7-0.
Hey, but did Dustin?
So I stared at my phone. I stared at my phone a lot more than I stared watching the Knicks game than I did watching where I was at. So.
Hey, did Dustin tell me that you had the laughing emojis? I played that Mike in the OC call to Rome. Did you hear that the other day? I can't get enough of it, Twiz.
That was absolutely amazing. And I used to call Jim Rome back in the day, so I know how he used to lay in the guys. And how that one right there was how he laid into him without ever saying a word. It was sweet.
He just let him hang himself. It was incredible. As a host, I was just like enamored with how he handled it.
Hey, but look, I want to give a shout out to Judge Torrey, and I don't know who the powers that be, but I don't know who we need to talk to. But I'm telling you, before at this time slot specifically, they were serving us a hot plate of mid. So I don't know what's going on, who I need to at, or whose address I need to pull up at. But we need to get that rectified and quickly here. We don't want any of that knowledge, that kind of talk of this slot being up in the air again. But look quickly on the Knicks, right? What I called you guys and I told you when I was watching that game, like Game 4, that there was no way, even though it was a close game, I had the way that game was going, there was no way Indiana was going to lose that game against the Knicks. But when I see that there are a flawed roster for a couple reasons. One, they went all out to try to just beat one team, and so they got the pieces with Bridges and Carl Anthony to compete with Boston. And after they did that, I think they won everything at that point, especially seeing when you put that in context with the fact that Cleveland also had lost. So they were looking at Indiana like, whatever, we can get past them, blah, blah, blah. But clearly that wasn't the case. I knew Indiana, like I said, was the better team, and I called that before. But what the Knicks have a problem of, they have too many one-dimensional type guys or one-way guys. You can't have Brunson. You can't have Towns. You can't have Mitch Robinson. You can't have Hart. You can't have all of those guys that are only good on one part of the floor against a team like Indiana who can run, gun, do all the things that they can do. You need two-way players. And then I think that they've reached the Eastern Conference Finals, I think might be their peak with a guy like Brunson. If you're going to have that many players that are one way or only can play on one side of the floor. You know, you got to have some more two-way players if you're going to have Brunson out there, because you can't keep switching in squads every time, you know, a stoppage plays. So defense, offense, defense constantly. It's just not going to work that way when you come up against a real squad like Indiana, who is still flawed in their own way. But
so you were posted up at the Dodgers game watching the Knicks game on your phone.
Yeah, I mean, luckily I have everything on my phone mirrors, my TV at home, so I have everything. But yeah, it wasn't a competitive game, though. I like competition. And when you sit down, like literally, when I sat down for real, it was right at the first, it was 3-0, and then by the time everybody walked past me and I got to get comfortable, it was 7-0. So you know, I mean, I'm happy the Dodgers won for sure. That's my squad. But at the same time, you want to see a little competition. But I will say this: shouts out to Aaron Judge for coming through with that home run, a home run and a half. Is what I had him at. I did the latter move where I put him at half a home run, and then a home run and a half, and both of them hit. Just because how he did in game on Friday, I figured, hey, why not throw $50 on it?
Let's go to it. Judge is batting like 400. Judge is having an all-time year. It's insane.
First of all, Twiz saw 7 home runs in one game, but I do think there is a conversation to be had about Aaron Judge, and in the summer we will have plenty of time to do that. But it is, well, some of us. It'll be an all-time, like, when we talk about right-handed hitters, and I know you like to bring up your boy Miggy, you like to bring up Pujols. There's a conversation to be had about Judge. Now, it's a shorter window than some of these other guys, but he's like how old people would talk about a guy like Jimmy Fox. And I don't know how old you have to be to talk about Jimmy Fox. I don't remember what era exactly he was in. Feels like WW2-ish, Ted Williams time. But Aaron Judge will be talked about the way that people talked about Jimmy Fox as all-time right-hand hitters.
You have to. You start with Pujols and Cabrera. Ramirez maybe in the mix. This is modernity. Judge's year this year He's starting to enter the chat.
Yeah.
But if you want to have some fun, if you're a seam head and you just want to actually do something, you want to practice tonight, do yourself a favor. Go ahead and baseball reference Pujols and Cabrera and look what they did for 15 straight years. It's insanity.
Yeah. And now there's a conversation to be had about Pujols, about his age, and was he lying about things. Also, I should also mention, I went down a deep rabbit hole of TikTok conspiracies that have, by the way, I have no idea if there's any credence to them, but that Serge Ibaka is a player under a different name and stole someone's identity to become Serge Ibaka, and the NBA is really like 5 years older than the actual is, but I digress. Pujols at the jump, those years with the Cardinals, like 23, 24 years old out of a junior college coming out of nowhere. And that first probably 7-8 years on the map before he signs with the Angels, you can probably make the case it's one of the greatest starts to a career you've ever seen.
And did Miggy the same? Miggy was a kid when he came up with the Marlins. By the way, I went down a TikTok rabbit hole. You can't say those words at 40. You got to retire it, brother.
Yeah, no, I can't. I am so addicted to TikTok. It is the things that pop up in my feed are so unhealthy.
Stop
now,
that.
It's like 90% food, but every now and then it's a conspiracy theory about. There was one about Dirk the other day that I have to look back into because it blew my mind. But TikTok, it's the wild, wild west right now.
I hear you. We got more bets and your calls. It's VSiN Live. It's Mad Dog Sports Radio.
Live on Mad Dog Sports Radio with Patrick Meagher and Dustin Swedelson. Welcome back to VSiN Live on Mad Dog Sports Radio. Here's Patrick Meagher and Dustin Swedelson.
Someone woke up with opinions on a Monday. Am I right, Naya? The big guy. The big guy is getting loose as a goose during the commercials. That's all I can say. I don't even know how much of it he wants to air.
No, it's just I get triggered. Like I don't generally have. I don't know. I don't start off with opinions, but then someone I don't like will have an opinion, and now I have an opinion because I have the opposite of opinion of what that person has.
Yeah, I don't know what you just said, but
no,
you definitely get triggered.
No one does.
You put my brain in a pretzel because you said opinion 1 million times, and I just think you said you don't like Bill Simmons.
Yeah,
that's what it comes out to.
I don't understand what's
brother.
happening and why it's in my feed all the time. I don't understand.
Yeah.
I don't understand it. I don't understand.
Well, was it a TikTok rabbit hole?
No, this was Twitter. He's a little bit older. He's not on the TikTok yet. Maybe on MySpace.
TikTok.
I'll check him out on MySpace.
We were talking Oilers. They start off their series at home against Florida on Wednesday, and here is Fitzgerald in Seattle, VSiN Live. Hi, Fitzgerald.
Let's go, Oilers! Woo! I finally got my voice back from Game 4 live in Edmonton. Let's go, boys! The Oilers are Canada's team. It's not the Toronto Make Me Laughs. It's not the Montreal Candidas. It's the Edmonton Oilers with the most skilled player we ever seen. The men call him McJesus, the girls call him McDaddy, and the Dallas Stars just got McDaddied. Woo! We're also seeing the best duo in NHL history, McDavid and Draisaitl, boys. And boys, I just want to touch on something. I like you guys. You're all right. Last time I called, though, patty cakes, you said I sounded like I was on cocaine. It's not cocaine. It's oil of oregano, lemon water, and cayenne pepper. Woo!
He sounds like he's cutting a wrestling promo. That's what it is. Fitzgerald, I like you. I like the cut of your jib, Fitzgerald.
Fitzgerald, were you calling from Stephon Diggs' yacht? Because it sounds like someone was on some Tusi.
Yeah, I do think I alleged he was on coke the last time. I didn't mean it. Everything I say is sarcastic. I like the passion. And I did chuckle with the McDaddy line.
Look, that guy is on cocaine. I can't confirm that completely. That guy is on something.
That would be alleged.
Allegedly, his heart rate is probably about $180 right now, sitting still.
But he's in Seattle, just absolutely ride or dying for the Oilers.
Yeah, but I thought Seattle people were chill. I thought they were all stoners.
you just heard Fitzgerald. They can turn up in Seattle.
Weed doesn't do that. Weed doesn't do that unless it's laced with super illegal things, allegedly.
Hey, man, throw on some Pearl Jam, a little Even Flow, and get ready for that Stanley Cup final.
Jeez. Most overrated band maybe of the last 30 years, 40 years, however long it's been.
Hey, the opinions are absolutely an avalanche today.
Pearl Jam, cool. You got like 3 good songs. Good, not great. Good.
Yeah, you've just been going nuts with the opinions and hearing a lot about what you think of the industry. What do you think the industry thinks of Dustin Swedelson?
No, it doesn't. That's the beauty. I can say whatever I want. It doesn't matter. I'm punching up. That's what we tried to accomplish with that stupid segment I came up with. What was it? Not the hot box. It was
where I thought
media
you were just gonna
roundup.
Yeah, the media roundup. I thought the big guy, because he just had so many opinions. I thought the big guy was going to come on and crush other shows. He literally would just regale us with how amazing he thought it all was.
I'm just scared of what the people I consider my friends, my coworkers, think about my opinions of their opinions. That's all. If you notice, we have anyone who I consider a friend on the show, whether it's JVT or Halterman or Samich. Well, I like to annoy Samich and say things that he doesn't like. But for the most part, everyone, I just co-sign their opinions, even if I don't believe it, because I just want to be a good friend first. I'm Josh Hart. I'm a great teammate. Can't shoot, though.
So you think the industry loves you is what you're saying?
I think the industry would have trouble finding what page I show up in the Google searches.
I don't know. I don't know, brother. I would just warn you to stay away from Reddit. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I learned that. I'm not welcome on Reddit.
We could say that. Dustin did a Reddit search on himself, and it put my man down bad.
It messed my mood up for a week, to the point where I thought maybe if I search my name on the dark web where illegal activity goes on, I might actually have some positive information on the dark web versus what I saw about me on Reddit. Good God.
My man was down bad. Here would be my first suggestion. Probably don't search yourself on the internet. What were you going into it thinking you were going to get?
The most hated I've ever felt was asking girls to dance with me at bar mitzvahs when I was 13. The second was searching my name on Reddit.
Right. I just wonder what's going through your brain when you're just posted up at home one night like, let me look into me. That's the big guy. Naya, thank you. Ryan, thank you. I think we'll see you tomorrow. VSiN Live, Mad Dog Sports Radio.
Covering the spread all night long. This is VSiN Live on Mad Dog Sports Radio.